Board Member Tennis, okay. I'm calling the board workshop for today into session. And hopefully we will have our other board members joining us very shortly. So with that, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Okay, so, and for announcements, do we have, yes?
Hi, my name is Jessica Hunt, and I am the PTA representative for District 13. And I am just announcing again our awards dinner that is happening May 16th. The doors open at 5:45. Will we be served appetizers of bruschetta and crostinis. After that, we'll have a salad course, and then our main entrees include rosemary tri-tip with garlic mashed potatoes and roasted vegetables, chicken parm with roasted vegetables and pasta, and for our vegetarian dish will be a pasta primavera. Tickets will be $25 a piece. They include that and a wonderful dessert bar that has so many listed that I can't say them all. So checks can be made payable to District 13 PTA. Please, please, please come. We would love to have you. And you will get to also see these wonderful kids at PV serve this great dinner. Because not only do they cook, they're like doing everything. They're decorating. I mean, it's just going to be amazing.
You want to give me the date again?
May 16th.
16th, okay,
Yep.
Good. All right, and I encourage everyone to come, and the student chefs are wonderful. All right. So the other announcements, Mr. Shepherd, do you want to talk about our glowing accomplishments? State competitions?
So every once in a while, we get to step out of the box and not just recognize athletics, right?
Yes.
We get to recognize all the things we have going on in our district, and we have some amazing students. I was commenting to one of my colleagues earlier, these kids are way smarter than I am. It's not a high bar. And they have been able to represent Chico Unified in various Skillsusa competitions. So I'm going to turn it over to one of our outstanding representative teachers, and he's going to explain the success of our CT programs.
All right, thank you.
Hi, my name is John Andrew. I teach industrial technology, computer science, robotics and drones over at Chico High School. I'm here to talk about 3 different competitions, and I thought there were slides, but it's okay. The first thing I'll talk about is the Cyber Mayor's Cup. This is a competition that's been going on in the state for quite some time. Oh, thank you. It's only in the last 3 or 4 years that they had a far north region, which Chico falls in. They used to lump our region in with the greater Sacramento area, but to try to give us an opportunity, they started promoting it in the more northern areas. We've competed in the last 2 years, and I'm happy to say Chico High's represented well. Last year we had one team, won first place, and this year we had 2 teams that got first and second place.
Wow,
So
great.
over here is Simon Fan, who is on the Golden Panthers team, who won the gold medal, and then we have Jacob Toss, who got silver. So that's the school's trophy. There is a larger, more elaborate, beefier trophy that goes in the mayor's office.
Oh.
And that has a plaque that just keeps getting added. It's a perpetual type thing.
Great. Fantastic.
You want to talk real briefly about the competition entailed?
I think it's just a good opportunity to have what we learn and to take theoretical knowledge and put into practical application. it's a good way to also look further on into other, kind of leads you into what kind of industries you can go into with the cybersecurity or computer science in general. So good opportunity to have. I'm glad that we had it this year.
All right, great.
Okay, the second thing I'm going to talk about is county robotics team called Viewsonic. I've been involved with this for 10 years now. We started a nonprofit about in 2016. This team consists of any student in high school from throughout Butte County. So this year we had team members consisting from Chico High, Inspire, and Las Plumas. Just double checking. All three members behind me are actually members of the team. Simon focused on our scouting application, where they identified what teams were doing what well at competitions. And then these two gentlemen over here were on the drive team and design team and build team because we had a small team this year. But Forrest here is an Inspire student, so he's here representing them.
All right.
You saw us driving that around a little bit earlier. I'm going to let them describe what it was and what the two events that they participated in real briefly.
Okay.
Just know that they outscored Shepherd on the basketball.
Yeah, you want to be able to talk so people can hear you. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, so this is our robot, Blue Tang. She's meant to compete in the first robotics competition, 2022 Rapid React. We went to the Sacramento Regional and the, oh yes.
Just because it gets work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as well as the Utah Regional. So yeah, do you want to talk a little bit about like what our design process was?
Yeah. Interesting.
It's a lot.
Over pretty much all of COVID, we had no FRC season, so it was a great time for us all to get practice doing having CAD experiences and knowing how to design parts, which for this bot was an immense help. Good point at the 3D printed parts. Pretty much all of the colored parts have either been milled on a CNC router table or 3D printed, which both of those have taken a lot of time and effort and CADing the entire robot to making sure everything fits together in a way that actually works.
Question for you. Are you telling me you guys made every single component on that thing, kind of more or less, or
Not everything. I mean, we don't make bolts ourselves.
like
but,
the shafts, perhaps, you did not make,
yeah,
maybe?
There's a lot of stuff that we just bought that are basic FRC supplies, but pretty much everything that's colored, we made ourselves. The stock aluminum is either cut down or bought to the exact size. But the clear polycarbonate, this blue piece on the front, the entire front bar intake assembly was pretty much 3D printed. Oh, the axle on the inside we did 3D print. Sure. If
That's
it's-
amazing.
We can. Mostly.
So it's one of our goals that every year we take them to at least 2 tournaments. It's all dependent on fundraising because it's a non-school activity. This gives them the ability to iterate, basically. So we went to the one competition without a climbing mechanism, that arm on the side. We made sure we had it for this next one because we realized that was a big make or break moment for that. This is the first year that our team has made it to the elimination, like the Elite 8 type thing, if I'm using a basketball analogy, of the actual event. We've been in the eliminations before, we just got out really quickly. We went to eliminations in both tournaments. We made it to qualification, the quarterfinals this time around as well. So we're getting better and better, and they're learning more and more, and the more that they build on this, they build legacy. Access to equipment at Chico High School compared to other years has been has built our game because the 3D printing and the CNC router capabilities, as well as Mr. Cockrell's powder coating booth, that's what got this noticed. It's bright orange for a reason, so people look at it. But that's what allowed them to win the Industrial Design Award, which is sponsored by General Motors.
All right.
The car dealership, the manufacturer of the vehicles, so that type of thing. So I'm going to let them demo.
And what's the relationship between the Inspire student and the Chico High student? Can you expand on that a little bit?
So, like I said, we started a nonprofit called Inspiration Robotics in Northern California in 2016, just before the Oroville Dam crisis. We did that because we wanted to be able to do fundraising. It was, the whole Robots program was developed with the ROP program, and that's the year that it went away. And so we needed a better way of keeping track of funds. When it was part of ROP, it allowed us to bring in students from all over the county, and it was very inclusive. Some students from Las Plumas knew how to build things really well. Other students from Chico High and Inspired knew how to design things really well, and everyone cross-pollinated. And it was a really, really advantageous environment for them because they saw students outside of their own school, their own district even. And so we've just kind of kept that going. And as time goes on, we just keep bringing in more people, and it's whoever wants to participate. So really, it's the nonprofit that funds the whole program.
Where do you guys get together? Where do they get together to do all their?
Do you know where the Highway 70 Industrial Park is in Oroville? Across from Surplus City and the paintball zone? Okay, Steve Zenglass has given us a 2,000 square foot office space to operate out of. And so usually we make the trip down there 2 or 3 times a week during the build season. If it's smaller things, we'll use my classroom because it's convenient and the majority of the team's from Chico. But we look at this and say, where can we make the biggest impact? And there's a lot of opportunity for the kids in Chico to work on things. We want to try and see if we can get other kids involved too. That's why we make sure it's a Butte County thing. So we've had kids from Magalia, Paradise, Gridley, Biggs, all part of the team in the past. And so it's really a part of that blending of it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So what were the criteria for this robot?
Yeah, so going into this competition season, what we're first given is a basic game animation that showcases roughly what you want your robot to do. And for this year, that was to shoot balls, to hang on a hanging structure, and also to intake balls off the field. So to go off of that, they also give us, what is it, like a 180-page rulebook, where we have to memorize basically what the game elements are, the dimensions of things, and just figure out what mechanisms could we make to accomplish these tasks.
It's really fun to go to these competitions because you always see someone came up with a unique way of doing something. The best operation that I saw to get up to a 12-foot high bar, what was it, 12? It was like the transversal one, small feet?
Yes.
Okay, 12 feet in the air. Basically, they put a giant compression spring on the robot and it jumped up to it.
Whoa.
It's amazing to watch. But, so, any more questions about Robots before I move on to Skillsusa? So 2 weeks ago, we came back from the Skillsusa State Conference down in Ontario, California. Mr. Farquhar, Jill McKay, and I sent 23 students down there. We did things from technical drafting, architecture, photography. There's a t-shirt design contest, cybersecurity, drones, computer programming, and related technical math. We had 2 students medal at this conference, and one of them, Jasper Nikolai, got a gold medal for technical design. It's a very difficult contest that requires you to have a lot of knowledge about drafting techniques and procedures. He's a sophomore, and so we're really excited that he's going to nationals as a sophomore just to see what can happen there.
Yep.
And then Fiona was in photography, and she received a silver medal for her photo shoot that she did at the contest. So we're really happy with how they performed, really happy that they had the experience, and just really excited to be able to give them that opportunity type thing year after year after year for Skillsusa.
I just want to really compliment you guys on working together and being so creative. I also know that you were sometimes beating our quote-unquote athlete administrators with your robot, so that's cool. Hopefully everybody saw the front page of the ER yesterday of a 14-year-old being funded by the Navy to develop an artificial intelligence that would detect fire danger. And they're now putting it to test in a remote area. So when you think about how much we have suffered from wildfires that we didn't know were happening until they were out of control, this will be an incredible development. And he's only 14. So you guys are on the right track.
Do you know which school he's from?
Pardon?
Do you know which school they're from so I can
It's-
recruit them?
Yeah, Newport
Oh,
Beach.
okay.
Yeah.
Down south, got it.
Yeah.
I thought it was local.
So go snag him, yeah. All right, anyone else, questions or comments?
Are we going to see this thing work or?
Oh, well, we saw it before when you were.
We should. We have a few extra. We have a website. Viewbuiltbots.org. Viewbuiltbots.org. There is a website shopping area that we use through Teespring. So,
All right.
okay.
Okay, so you're not going to shoot it at me, right? You're going to.
I'm going to go over here.
Yeah, you can shoot Tom, that's okay.
Kelly, our insurance policy's all intact and everything, right?
All right. Woo!
Okay. Okay. Actually, before the speed demonstration, I want to show something that I think is brilliant. This thing, first time I started driving, it was really top heavy and tippy. Their solution wasn't make it less top heavy. It was like, nope, we want to go fast. But if we do get out of balance, that lowers the center of gravity and makes it fall down on back.
All right.
It didn't touch anything. That was automatic. It's in the driver's seat.
All right. Way to go, guys.
And do I understand it picks up balls too? Yeah, let's see this.
Yep, go for it.
Woohoo!
Drive it back and do speed.
Can I get a prototype of that for my toddler's toys, please?
Vex IQ. Vex IQ is where it's at.
Look how fast.
Wow, you're thinking these guys could actually are going to play basketball someday.
I'd be down for that.
If you gave us a build season, we could make a robot that could do it pretty well.
You're going for a basket again.
Yep, I am lining this up entirely by eye. Literally looking at the bar.
You got it. No, no, you're too far away. Go. Let it rip. Do all three. Fire. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, guys. Really appreciate you coming. Great. You gave us a kickoff start.
Mr. Vincent, did you need anything else from this group for your presentation? Just to say they did an awesome job on this.
Yeah.
John, just very quickly, what classes are you teaching next year? So anybody watching that might want to.
Classes I'm teaching next year is software programming and robotics and drones. That's one pathway. And then the other pathway is computers, components, the networking of things, then cybersecurity and networking. So, and then we
right.
have Mr. Farquhar's engineering and architecture courses. He is busy today and yesterday building a tiny house on campus.
Building a
So,
what now?
A tiny house on
Oh,
campus.
that's right. I saw that. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, he did. I missed him. I must have been in class. That's cool. Thank you.
All right.
All right. Thanks, you guys. You can stay. No time to stay. We'll go home and do homework. Is that the end of our
Well, we also have both schools, high schools, track and field qualified to go to state, and state is coming up this weekend. All right, so.
John has an item, speaking of track, that he needs to pull 2 items
Oh,
for track.
okay.
When you get to consent.
Okay, okay. Well, actually, consent happens right now, so we moved to our consent calendar. And, John, you have 2 you want to pull?
Yes, please. I'd like to pull 3.1.3 and 4,
All right,
the 2 Fresno trips.
okay. And anybody else have one they want to pull? Okay, so seeing nothing else being
Just,
pulled,
Dr. Kaiser, we do have public comment under consent.
okay.
Like to,
Oh, I see, yes, I'm sorry. So Julie Treat,
Hi, everyone. Good evening. I had an emergency eye surgery problem, so you didn't see me for a few weeks. but
Oh.
I'm still kind of on the side a little bit, detached retina. That was fantastic.
yes.
My gosh, I'm glad I caught the tail end of that. So on the consent agenda, there were a few things. That Marigold trip really kind of made an impact on me. When I was in elementary school, 6th grade in the Bay Area, we went up to Redwood Glen for our overnight, and you had to get certain grades, but you went up there and looked for lichen, and we dug through scat and all this crazy stuff. But the one overnight piece, we had to do a hike. No lights, no flashlights, nothing. And you just had to kind of keep track of each other front and back. I'm 58, I can still remember that to this day. So the fact that that's money well spent. The things that I see in some of these consent agendas, I always tell parents, you gotta dig into the details. Because, we tend to focus on some of the negatives, but that stuff's just incredible. So kudos for all of that. The track team, I could never run, so congratulations on that. And the only part in here was the piece on the kids that are, that need the grade adjustments, the grade assessment, the grade accommodations. And it's just breaking my heart to see the percentages of kids that are struggling for a variety of reasons. And I'm hoping we can just kind of come out of this and maybe learn something. I've sent a note down to the Butte County, the Board of Supervisors, but Public Health Department, Behavioral Health Department, Scott Kennelly, Danette York, if they can just engage, my gosh, all of this stuff just needs to be solved and cracked. 30% I think that I saw in here that needs some accommodations. And I watched that workshop a few weeks ago with the IEPs, so I'm all behind helping with that and getting us through this. So thank you very much, but go Marigold. And my gosh, go the robotic team.
All right, thank you. Okay, so can I have a motion?
I move passage of the consent calendar minus 3.1.3 and 3.1.4. Is that right, John
Yeah,
Shepherd?
yes.
Seconded.
All right, so I have a motion and a second. It'll be a voice vote.
Robinson, aye.
Lando, aye.
Kaiser, aye.
Dolby, aye.
Tennis, aye.
All right, 5-10, thank you. Okay, so Mr. Shepherd is back with 3.1.3. Go.
Thank you. So both 3 and 4, I wanted to thank Member Robinson for catching this. The dates for both of those field trips, due to some inaccurate calendaring, we need to adjust those dates to May 26th through the 29th for both. And
Oh, for both, okay. Okay. All right, so it will read that the Chico High Track team will go to the championships May 26th through the 29th, and then number 4 will say that PV will go May 26th through 29th. All right, so can I have a motion?
I move approval of 3.3 and 3.4
All right,
with the dates corrected.
Seconded.
second, okay. So I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, so thank you for that, and I'm glad you caught the error in the dates. All right, so now we move to our board workshop topic, which is Chico Unified District Technology and Cybersecurity.
Good afternoon, Board. Madam President, board members, I appreciate the time today to be able to present to you what we're doing with technology in Chico Unified. Tim Karras is going to be co-presenting with this with me. He did a lot of work on this slideshow and in preparing for this. I just want to say thank you to him for all of his work on that. I'm going to let Tim take this one. Yeah.
Good evening, everybody. We are here to talk to you about technology in Chico Unified. It's a huge topic because it really touches everything that we do. Just like people in their personal lives, technology has kind of taken hold in our lives, and very, very same for the school environment as well. So we're going to talk about security, in both internet security and individual student security and monitoring of computer use, and then talk about some of the uses. We do have a couple guest speakers, one from a consultant firm that we use to advise on cybersecurity, and one from the FBI.
Okay.
So before we get into the big scary topics of cybersecurity and the threats that are out there, just wanted to take a moment to go over why we use technology in Chico Unified and how we use it. First of all, for students, college and career readiness. We saw a great example of that just prior to this, where students are getting their hands on technology, very high level technology. So that's an example of technological skills, higher level technological skills. But even those that aren't going into a tech field need to be able to function on a computer in college. They need to be able to function on a computer in just about any job that they are going to take after leaving us. Our curriculum is to a large degree online right now. Students use technology for research. We get assessment data from students via the use of technology. Just about all of our district assessments are given online. And so you can see that number, almost 90,000 educational websites visited by Chico Unified students through January. From a staff standpoint, we're able to better monitor student safety, both safety in general and safety online using technology. Teachers use it for managing learning with software such as Google Classroom. Data analysis takes place online. There's, unlimited amount of teaching tools out there, and we're better able to communicate with folks. So with that, I'm going to let, we'll talk more in detail after the security presentations, but I'm going to let John take on cybersecurity here.
So cybersecurity is a big subject nowadays. It's as we're going to see here in the upcoming presentations, it's just exploded. The amount of ransomware that's going on right now.
Yeah.
We have a couple of presenters with us. Nathan Mee is a special agent with the FBI, and so he's with us today. And so I'm just going to let him start out this conversation to kind of give you an overview of what's going on in the cyber world right now. So Nathan, you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you well.
All right. Well, thank you for the introduction there. I run a cybersecurity team here at the local FBI office in Sacramento, and we investigate things that have to do with cybercrime, whether conducted by criminal gangs or conducted by state-sponsored hacker groups. And I've been here about 2 years. Been in this job for about 2 years. Been with the FBI about 17 years. So that's kind of a short summary there. Since we don't have too much time today, I'm just going to jump right into some of the things that we see happening with government organizations, in particular school districts. And there are two types of cybercrime that is really disruptive to an organization. And these two things are what we have observed happen again and again to local governmental agency, in particular, school district. And the first one is business email compromise. And essentially what that is it's a financial fraud scam where they try to get into the middle of your email conversation between you and perhaps a vendor. So how it would work is they would pretend, whether through spoofed email or whether through getting access to the actual real email account of the vendor. And let's say you have an ongoing relationship and you have a bills to pay, that vendor will, the hackers, the bad guys basically will observe the email traffic, your communications with each other, and what they would do is they get in the middle of that and they send out the email, and essentially the email would say, hey, we changed our account number. So, for next month's payment, can you send it here? And redirect that payment to an account they control. And once, because it's a trusted relationship, there's an existing vendor relationship there, right? So you just go based on trust and you make that payment, and that payment goes somewhere else. You thought you paid the bill, the real vendor did not get paid, and the money is then withdrawn by money mule networks, and most of the time they'll end up overseas. So as you can see, we've seen losses anywhere between a couple $100,000 up into millions of dollars. So that could be a very, very disruptive to an organization. For a small to medium private company, that could bankrupt them, right? For a school district, that could take away resources that are used for education purposes. The second thing that we see quite a bit is ransomware. Essentially, criminal gangs, a lot of the time they're overseas, Eastern Europe, Russian, but in other places as well. And what they would do is they would, whether through phishing or through some other intrusion methods, they would get into your network, they encrypt your network, then they leave a note behind, or they send you a note, and they demand payment. And if you don't pay them, then you lose your data. If you pay them, then you're kind of enabling that crime, right? You're making that crime profitable. So that's and then we've also seen the second stage ransom as well, which essentially is, hey, if you pay us, we'll give you the key to decrypt. And if your IT team has backup and have been doing a good job at keeping backups, you may be able to just wipe the network, restore from backup, and keep going. Well, in that case, the second stage will come in and say, well, we have your data, right? And your data is sensitive, is valuable, depending on what data they got. And they may say, if you don't pay, we'll sell your data. We'll put it on the dark web. We'll make money from it somehow. And if the data they stole was really sensitive, personal identifying information, things like that. Sometimes organizations will have to that hard decision to pay to get that data back, or pay to not have data distributed outside of your organization. So those are the two things that we see happening again and again, and those two things could be prevented by changing some business processes, by putting layered defense into your network, right? So for the first one, BEC, having that follow-up, don't trust that email alone, right? So if the email is, hey, we changed your bank account, we changed our bank account, send it here instead, I wouldn't trust that email to go with, to begin with, right? I would pick up the phone and I would call not the phone number that they left on that spoof email, but maybe a phone number that is good, right? A known good phone number to your vendor, and verify, hey, did you send this email? Because once that money is sent and goes overseas, it's really hard to get back. And then on the law enforcement side, we have a process where if the fraudulent transaction is detected early enough, and you fill out an IC3 or you call your local FBI office or something, if it's early enough within, they say 72-hour period, beyond 72, it's gone, right? It's pretty much gone. Less than 72, there is a good chance of getting something back, right? So the longer, probably toward the 72, there's less likelihood. Toward the the 0, or as soon as it's discovered, there's a higher likelihood of getting the money back, right? So that's on the DEC side. On ransomware, again, backup is something that should be done regularly. It's verified that it's done well. Also, defenses make sure that the ransomware, a lot of times they get in, they deploy ransomware, and then the ransomware just kind of percolate throughout the network. So have network segmentation, things like that, protect your valuable data, identify what's valuable to protect, and put some extra, fence, IT fences around it to make sure that even if they do extract data, they can't, it makes it harder for them to get to the valuable data that would prompt you to make that payment, right? So those are some of the basic things. If we have more time, I'm happy to talk more about additional things that we can do. I'm happy to take questions that you may have as well.
So I'd like to ask, so have we been seeing a really large increase, and I take it, of ransomware? Is that something that is it plateauing, or is it still continuing to decline, the amount of ransomware that we're seeing right now?
It is nonstop. Like that is one of the scams that we see the most coming in terms of reporting to the public. And the way it works is the ransomware gangs. It's really organized crime at this point. It's and it may not be organized crime in the traditional sense where there's a mob boss and hitmen and all that. It's not in that sense, but organized as in they coordinate with each other. They each bring certain skill sets to the table. They have money neural networks. They're malicious coder, software developers, people who can code, and they just code malicious software instead of legitimate software, right? So, and they organize and they victimize people. So yes, we do see a lot of, and there are different gangs. I don't know the exact numbers, but the FBI is tracking probably a good 3 dozen different variants of ransomware. Perhaps more, and I know private cybersecurity companies in private industry also track these groups.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Is it ever sensible to try to make incoming emails dumber? And what I mean by that is, sometimes if I've got like a Word document or something and there's a bunch of formatting in it that I don't like, and I just wish I could just get rid of it, because I don't like the way it looks, you could save it in a really dumb format, like a text message or something that doesn't support all that ugly stuff that you don't want. Can you put some kind of or is it ever practical for, like when the emails come in that are from outside of our system, they say external on the top, which I think is really helpful, right? Is there also a way to program in, like a reserve a decision that you could make that any email coming in would immediately just be converted into a text only sort of thing with no live links to, no files that could be opened to just kind of strip out the smart stuff that the bad guys are using?
That's something that I think a lot of, depending on what software you use, right? What email solution you use, I think some, if not most of the features you're talking about are customizable, and I think your IT team would be able to to answer some of the more specific questions, because they would know what software solutions we use, right? But yes, there are ways to shut off links, there are ways to shut off auto loading of images and things like that on email.
Very good. Thank you. Any other questions on the board? All right, Agent Lee, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate you taking some time away from your schedule to join us today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
So we're diving into cybersecurity, and we're seeing the side of this from law enforcement. We also have Braun Martin with us today. He's from Executech, who is one of our cybersecurity consulting firms, and he'll also give us a little more insight into the current cybersecurity environment that we're living in right now. Braun, can you step up with us?
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me. So we're Executech. We have several hundred employees, a dedicated security team, and COVID was the greatest thing on the planet Earth for the bad guys. I can tell you that. So you hit the next slide. This is kind of what the security landscape looks like. I'm going to go through this relatively quickly, but again, the intent here is for you guys to be as interactive as possible. I can specifically, Mr. Tennis, answer some of your questions. I've run into some of those things in the past on what the pros and cons of some of that are. So I want to catch your mind all the way back to 2016. What did that universe look like from an IT perspective? Back then, everything was pretty much on-prem. You had a couple things that were hosted out of the cloud, but for the most part, John and his team was responsible for everything that ran out of the district, right? That was the reality of it. Today, that is no longer the case, right? It's actually relatively rare to run all of your applications out of it. I have a grand total of one client that does that today.
I'm sorry, what did you just say? That you have one client that does what? That runs their applications how?
They do not allow any cloud applications of any kind of organization.
So for instance, we have a lot of our applications that live in our data center at the district office, instead of having them hosted up in Amazon or someplace else. So that's what
Yeah, I only have one client that still does that for all their apps. They do not allow any cloud applications inside their environment. One out of thousands of clients. We have one client that does not allow it. Everyone else has moved to the cloud for one reason or another. So essentially, data collection, accounting, and sales.
Sorry, that means they're kind of like an island. They're kind of disconnected from the internet, basically, or they have some sort of intra-web.
Very, very significant intranet, and the reason why they do that is they're a financial services firm. So their clients are Wells Fargo, are Bank of America, things of that nature. So they're, just to put that in perspective, they're so sophisticated, the event that their entire primary data center went down, they'd be live in their other data center across town in 30 seconds. So these guys, they take this very, very, very seriously. Centralized data collection as a result is now very, very common, right? You don't have a bunch of distributed systems all over the place. Everything's kind of in one location. And again, now that COVID sent everybody home for a while, and that was super fun for John and his IT staff, right? They had to figure out how to get everybody to work remotely and access their data in as secure as fashion as possible, which now meant that you needed more bandwidth, you needed more access by more people 24/7, right? The old, hey, I've got a backup window, I've got an outage timing, things of that nature. IT doesn't usually have those luxuries anymore, right? We kind of run like a 24/7 shop. And then on top of that, and this is the big nasty out there that really kind of reared its head today, which I'll talk about, is the Internet of Things. There's a lot of devices that are connected to the internet that aren't computers. I guarantee you that presentation thing has an IP address on it. Just literally your screen.
It does, but we don't plug it in because it's an IoT device.
Yeah, because it's an IoT device. So, and I've been in, so we've got, again, a dedicated team does it. Like we've gone into areas like this and we'll find like a toaster that's got an IP address on it, and we can like turn the toaster on during the presentation, which can freak people out. And it should, because there's not a lot of security around some of that. So Target and the Home Depot hacks from a couple years ago, that hack actually came in through the IoT system. It was actually through the refrigeration system on one side and the HVAC system on the other. So that's how those guys got into their environments. So why? Why is that the case? In 2015, ransomware is the grand total of $325 million. As you just heard Nathaniel, right? He deals this stuff all the time. So these numbers are legit. It was $11.5 billion in 2019. Again, COVID hit, and it was over $20 billion last year, and we're tracking to be $30 billion this year. It is now the most profitable business in the world. It's more profitable than drugs. As he said, they're tracking dozens of these cartels that are out there. There's been one major arrest made total. So there's almost no risk to being part of some of these things. In fact, there are websites that are available that you can go to and put as much information about an organization as you can into that website. The cyber criminals will use that information to try to get into the organization, and if they do successfully, they'll give you a piece of it as a finder's fee. Some of these links, I'll send this document to you guys. You can check these things out later if you want, but again, we've seen about these are the very, very public ones that were made. You guys may remember last year, like the East Coast suddenly ran out of gas for a little while because one of their big producers was there. They got cryptoed. But just so you know, their pumping stations were fine. Like their ability to generate energy was not compromised. The system that was compromised was their billing system. The billing system was completely turned off and wrapped up. It was so expensive for them to try to figure out, because they can't just keep pumping oil if they don't know who they're selling it to, that it shut down their entire operation. They coughed up $40 million to turn their billing system back.
Oh, jeez.
So that's the real deal. This morning, this I was talking about with the Internet of Things. So last year I had a very large client get compromised, and we worked with the FBI at that point in time, and we started theorizing about what the next level of attack is. That was uncovered this morning. It's called a botnet. In most of the universe, you have a compute device, like your laptop, and then you have a server somewhere. It's Amazon or something that John hosts or things of that nature. They're compute. They have the ability to, like, you ask it to do things and then it will do them. But between those 2 points, you have a whole bunch of other devices that aren't particularly intelligent. They're routers, they're switches, they're hubs, or things of that nature, but they handle the network traffic. This latest attack is so sophisticated, what they figured out how to do is update those devices, and what it says is, if I get a piece of information from you, send it on to where it goes, but make me a copy of it. And it just slowly starts to bifurcate what that traffic looks like. So over time, they're dumping that information, and eventually they're gonna get some of your data out of it. It wasn't malware, it wasn't crypto, it was something completely new. And they're targeting financial services organizations and government organizations, because they know if they get enough of that data for you guys and they lock up your systems, you're gonna have to pay to get the stuff undone later. It's brand new.
I'm going to ask just probably a boneheaded question, but I feel like it's my job to ask it, so I'm going to do that. Is there like a, I gather there's not some kind of panacea response, or if there is, we'd be going back to the educational Stone Age of some kind, but just saying, well, let's go down the list of things that maybe we don't need. Is there room for a worldview or maybe a voice at the table that would just say, well, maybe we can do without that one really dangerous thing? And does that have any traction?
It would be tough. So I have a hospital client that was kind of their mechanism. They said they were going to basically go back to paper. In the event that something went wrong, they were going to go back to paper. It failed. So many things now require so much electronic interaction that the idea that I can just go back to paper to do my job and actually do it successfully is just not reality anymore. It just isn't. So I'm with you. It'd be nice to do it, but it hasn't proven to be successful in any cases that we've seen. Instead, what we've tried to do is, how do we start looking at some of these things? Right now we have tools, and I have a slide that talks about this later, that we're pretty good at scanning what the compute device is at the client side, and there are tools that do a pretty good job scanning what the computer's doing, but we don't necessarily have a lot of tools that do stuff in the middle because they're hideously expensive traditionally. The ability to start monitoring and looking at what that stuff does is now possible. We typically refer to this as a SOC, a Security Operations Center, that's now reading what is that device doing. Because the device knows that it's sending it to you and it's sending it to you at the same time. It knows that it's doing that, but we're not looking at that information because those logs are huge and it's super boring for a human being to look at it. So you really need a computer to say, why is it that we're now suddenly streaming that to 2 different locations? So that's kind of that next layer of the onion, the security onion that we need to start adding onto the systems. And this is going to spur that more and more as this stuff comes out. Now, this particular botnet we know has been out there for about 18 months. I'm pretty confident that a couple of my clients actually were impacted by this. So that gentleman from the FBI, Nathaniel, he just mentioned that vendors will change their routing for your payments. We had a client that happened to the tune of about $250,000. And everybody was like, how did that happen? What took place? And it looked like it was completely legit. Well, now we're pretty confident after seeing how this botnet worked, it was legitimate. It was legitimate because he was, releasing information that she didn't know was being released. So that's the kind of thing that's happening at this point in time. So something that everyone really, really needs to be aware of. And as you said, the number of attacks is dramatically increasing. We used to see an attack once every couple months. Now it's very, very, very rare for a week to go by without some sort of attack taking place. Which, if you kind of think back to the beginning of COVID, there was a big, huge stigma if you got it, right? Oh, you had COVID, you weren't cleaning your hands, you weren't. By the end of COVID, man, everyone was talking about how many times they got it. Like, I got it twice. How many times did you get it, right? We destigmatized it. That kind of needs to happen when it comes to cybersecurity. We need to be really, really comfortable saying, hey, I think something happened to me, without somebody going, what'd you do wrong? Because I've had VPs of operations do something, but they didn't want to acknowledge it, and then 2 weeks later we find out that 50 grand was sucked out of an account. We're like, why didn't you tell us? Like, you knew what was going on. You knew there was something weird in that last email you read. It's like, well, I really want to talk about it. We're like, okay, well, now we know. You just got to talk about it. There's no stigma to it. It's going to happen, and it's going to get worse. So if there's one thing that comes out of this, is that if you see something that's weird, tell IT, tell somebody. Don't keep it to yourself. It needs to be destigmatized, because if you haven't been hit yet, my father-in-law is a pilot. There's two kinds of pilots, ones that have crashed and ones that will crash, okay? It's gonna happen, so just be aware of it and be comfortable with it. So that's what's happening on these. So go ahead to the next one. Okay, so again, the tools and technologies used to be millions of dollars to build a SOC. They're now much more reasonable, and you don't just have to build them internally. There's also third-party services that'll do this now for you as well. They're much more reasonably priced. They're not cheap, but it's a heck of a lot cheaper than coughing up a $5 million payment to get your students' data back, which I'm sure you guys heard about out of the Bay. At the same time, we now need the distributed workforce to also be protected. Like, everyone from here worked from home at some point in time during COVID, right? That was just a normal part of the operation, and there's no possibility that you're gonna get everyone to come back into the office 5 days a week. It's just not gonna happen. Not for a long, long, long time. So we need to really build up the understanding that you need to protect the entire network, no matter where it is. So what does that mean? These are the security layers that we talk about. Again, this is kind of that network from the outside. Then you have your platform, right? This is your antivirus. This is the stuff that we have at the edge pieces that Johnny's team managed really, really well. You have your applications. What are you using to get to it? Then you'll get your data. And then the last part is the response, which very, very few people have a real formalized mechanism for how do you respond. Again, you need to have it out there that when you get hit, if it's a when, not an if, these are the steps that we're going to take in order to make sure that we protect you as much as possible. There are tools out there now that actually tell you, in the event that something happened, what data did they get? Because really, really, if they have your data that is not particularly sensitive, don't pay them. Who cares? Like, all right, yeah, I'm a public organization. You now have my budget for last year. Congratulations, you can find it on the Chico website, right? There's no downside to that. So if you can actually sort through and find what data they have, it makes a big difference on whether or not you make the decision to pay the ransom or not. And this is what your security risk management looks like today. Again, it's a cycle, right? We have network security, user education awareness, malware prevention, removal of media controls. I was very happy when I first handed my little key drive that Zach asked, can I use this? Can I plug this into my system? Which is good. 3 years ago, if someone would have handed you a USB drive, you just would have plugged it in. There would have been no hesitation whatsoever. So at least now we have awareness that maybe I shouldn't plug that into something. Security configurations. Managing privileged end users. This is a big one. A lot of people have the same password and the same access to different layers of the environment. If John goes to log in as an administrator, he should be able to log in this way to access this part of the system, and he should log in a completely different way to access this part of the system. And that needs to be the case for every single thing that happens. And now we know, again, based on what that botnet, there now needs to be a third login. You now need to have a different login to access security systems and security controls at the network layer than you do from your server layer. So it just gets more and more layered as things take place. Incident management, again, track what's happening, who's doing it. Again, we need to start moving the stigma of what's happening out there. Monitoring, and then mobile and home working. So there are certain people that they have direct VPN access into the system, they need to be tracked differently than somebody who's just coming in over just a portal.
So what about the person who was deliberately providing information in hopes of getting paid? In
That's
other
right.
words,
So that's what the SOC is doing, because we're trying to see why, because you're literally combing through millions and millions and millions of logs. So if we start seeing something, I was telling John earlier, we had a client that they went down to South America, they logged in their system, and then very, very quickly, we started seeing something coming in from Laos from the same person.
Oh.
We have a SOC that's doing that. A normal computer would be like, yeah, that's a legit credential, let it in. Like, because it really was, it was legit. It was just the fact it was coming in from an unexpected place that the system turned off that traffic. So unless you have those kind of controls, like your login's your login.
Mhm.
So you need to just kind of be aware of how those things operate. I think that's next one. Okay, so this is kind of our recommended approach. This is the hardest thing. The average security environment is never done. There is no end. There is no end. Now I'm secure, right? Nothing can be proven to be secure. It can only be proven to be unsecure, right? Because I broke into it. It's a bank. It just hasn't been broken into yet. So there's a constant and ever-evolving space that requires new tools, adoptions, methodologies, things of that nature. Is our recommendation as many layers that we know of can be protected with as fast as possible. So if you saw a couple things on that last slide you don't necessarily have, try to patch those as fast as possible. It is better to have more coverage than to have better individual coverages. Like having the latest and greatest server backup software that was hideously expensive, but that's the only thing you got, is not as valuable as having okay backup and then putting some resources to some of the functions. And then, again, it's critical to note there's no one solution, right? There is no magic bullet. There is none. Specifically to your question earlier, part of the problems we have like law firms and such that we work with. If I'm cracking open the Word document or the Excel document or the PowerPoint to strip that information out that goes in, that means IT's seeing some of that. So if there's HIPAA information in there, if there's PPI in there, it becomes a problem. That becomes a district issue. So you need to just be aware that if I'm going to look inside the Word document and strip out all the formatting that I don't like and just read what's in there and put it to a different format, something was looking inside that document. Mm-hmm. So just be aware there's some privacy concerns that can kick in.
It's not just some dumb computer tool that just strips it out.
It is, but at some point they screw up, right? They make mistakes, et cetera, and then there's the thing that we really do recommend is like if you're going to send some information, it should be encrypted. If it's encrypted, that tool can't see it. It doesn't understand what's happening, right? Because it's all scrambled anyway. So if you're going to send out all of your social security numbers, don't just send a blank Word document. Make sure there's a password control and things like that. Make sure there's things on it.
So back to my question, but if somebody's sending in some piece of spam or some random just phishing email, what do I care if it's got, if my tool is looking into their email and.
I don't know of a tool that's sophisticated enough to understand the difference between this is just spam versus this is something I really shouldn't be looking at. Yeah. It doesn't know that. Right. It's scanning everything, and you guys are scanning for spam malware, right? So it is trying to catch the big ugly stuff. It's just not necessarily sophisticated enough to understand the nuances between them. Good questions. Any other questions? And this is legit. Like I said, we've had clients pay a lot of money. $250,000 just lost in just one transaction.
So for a school district like ours, without tipping our hand too much to the bad guys who are all obviously following this on our YouTube live stream right now, what's like the worst case scenario? Our kids' data, I guess.
They can
right?
lock up, and they have locked up, and we have seen all your student information system and all of your Active Directory has been locked up and completely malwared, which means that you don't have the access to it. So then they'll post it. They'll post everything, right? So that's problematic. And then on top of that, these latest attacks are so sophisticated. So for example, you guys are on Office 365? Okay, so Office 365, behind the curtains that you don't see, will keep 200 copies of every Word document, Excel document, anything that you're working on. If you store in the cloud, it'll automatically keep 200 copies of it. So you can always recover if you accidentally delete one. There's now malware out there that's written in a macro that'll go out and it'll change one symbol in that document 201 times and save it and then delete it. So that when you're actually going to go find your document, it's already screwed it up to the point where the document you're trying to go get back is gone. That's how sophisticated these attacks are. So they know how the attackers know how your backups work. So they actually go and they look for most backups. They tag it somehow. They'll have like a $sign at the front of the file name or at the end of the file name. They actually go out and they look for those. And the first thing they do, they delete your backups. But they don't crypto you. They don't encrypt your data. They just delete the backups for 30, 45, 50 days because they know if they just delete your backup from last night and then crypto you, well, I can take a day's loss. I'm not going to pay $1 million to get a day's worth of data back. But if I do that for 60 days, now you go, John, I need the last 60 days for the data. He's like, it's gone. Okay, now recover everything for the last 2 months.
But my point is kind of like, that's a Word document, right? You know, I mean, who cares?
Right.
Right.
These are the computer. These are like the student information systems.
So like all of our GPA data, for example, like could just all of a sudden poof, you know, be
Correct.
gone unless we pay somebody a Bitcoin or something like that.
Correct.
Right?
Exactly. Exactly.
So GPA data, I mean, I'd just like to maybe think of again, without like tipping our hand, like what are the kind of things that's really sensitive?
All the home addresses, any social security numbers for any of the parents that are coming into the system, like literally any piece of data that you can store about any one family, their addresses, et cetera, all of that's stored somewhere. And they will post that, as well as their any kind of student trouble, like if you have an HR department that says, hey, the student's on a PIP plan and things of that nature, like all that will, and they're nasty.
IEP data.
IEP, thank you.
Yeah,
My
I would
wife's a
just,
teacher too,
to
don't
finish,
let
to
her do
tie
this.
off my point that I want to make on this, I would just look for things to not keep around, you know, if there's things that we don't really need to have, you know, digitally, then, you know, why collect them? That's just my thought.
Any other question?
I was just going to say there have been 2 districts in the North State that have been hacked.
Successfully.
And they had all of their student data, all of their staff data, everything was frozen. So you couldn't get in to do roll.
Attendance.
You couldn't get in to pay your employees. You couldn't, I mean, they were basically dysfunctional. They did not post it. They did pay a $2 million ransom, but they got their
There's
information
been
back.
far
They
more
started
than
at
that.
25 million and
yeah.
got down to 2, I think.
There's actually been far more than 2, that those 2 just were made public. The rest we've been able to keep quiet.
Yeah, those are the only ones I'm aware of. I'm
Yeah,
sure there are
but again, they had to
many
pay.
more.
They had to pay because they literally couldn't run payroll. They couldn't do anything.
Right.
In the event that something does happen, again, you know, reach out to a firm like us, like those documents that Nathaniel from the FBI was talking about. We know how to fill out those FBI forms because we filled them out many times at this point. So we work with that team. We understand what to do against the incident response. The sooner you know what to do when this is going to happen, the better off you'll be when it happens.
Well, 72 hours is a very short time framework.
It's next to impossible unless you have some sort of SOC that's like throwing up information to you right away. Like you don't know, and these guys are smart. Like my biggest client got hit on Easter weekend. Now we know that they had been in there for at least 40 days, and they were just waiting for Easter. And then that Friday night at 11:40, they kicked it off, and we just happened to have the tool there that alerted to say, hey, we're starting to see a lot of disk activity. What's happening? So we were able to turn things off before it really got out of control. But even in that case, it was sophisticated enough that it had basically encrypted about 20% of their data for their executives. It ignored all the rest, but they knew who the CFO was, the COO, like they knew who those people were. They started encrypting their system first. It was very sophisticated. They're cartels. These are not good people. Okay, thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Hey, I appreciate you providing the information in the service. Critical.
So as you can see, things it's really an interesting time right now. We've seen a huge increase in cybercrime. One thing we've been doing is we put layers into place. So Braun mentioned about an onion, about layers, and that's really important, is have layers of protection in place. And so what we try to do is make it painful for someone who comes in and tries to, a bad player comes in and tries to steal our data or tries to ransomware us, for the payout, for as much as, whatever we have, our data that we have is worth so much to them. So if we can make it painful enough where it's not worth it for them, they move on. So for instance, I have the slide here. So I want to do just a quick analogy to, let's say, a car in a dark parking lot, right? So you have this beautiful, you bought a new car. Our district's kind of medium-sized, so it's like a Camry, right? It's not a LA Unified where it's just a Ferrari, and it's not a little tiny school. That's just like a 1960 Dart Sport. It's a decent car, and it's parked in the parking lot. And so, recently, you probably all know we changed our passwords. And now we have to change our passwords every, a couple times a year. We make it so that you get phishing, fake phishing emails. So these are the basic things we do now to make it so this car is secure. We're turning the car off, we're taking the keys out, we're rolling up the windows with our firewalls, we're locking the doors. These are the basic things right here that help keep us safe. And so we now have other systems too where we put layers in place to make it difficult for people when they do get into our system to get through to that data, to that car, to be able to steal it. So that's where people like Braun and others come in to help us put those systems in place. And we've had great support from our senior cabinet, from business, to be able to do these things. And so I just wanted to ease your mind a bit that, we're not wide open with the car running and the windows down. But that threat's always there. If someone really wants to steal that car, they're going to steal the car, right? I mean, if that's really what they want is that Camry, and they don't want to go after that Ferrari, they're going to be able to do it. So our job is to put those layers in place and just make it painful enough where they find another car with the windows down. So go on to the next slide. So I think the next one here, goes to Tim. Nope, this one is me. So I want to talk a little bit about student data privacy. So, we, beyond just us protecting our systems and our data here, we have other systems out there. We, Illuminate, different systems that store our student data out in the cloud. And so we have to have contracts with them. So if they get hacked, then we have, there's repercussions. They have to report to us what happened and let us know within a certain time frame. So there's a link on here, and this is a list, a public website that lists all of our software and all the contracts that we have with those different companies. This is required by law. Assembly Bill 1584 requires that. So that link is available for any public member to go out and look at that and see what our different programs are and that we have contracts with them. We use a lot of Chromebooks, and so we have a management console that we use to manage those. The Google Management Console allows us to lock down those Chromebooks and keep those, keep our kids safe in there so they can't just install things and do whatever they want to. We lock down our student email so that they can't receive email from outside sources, so that they're not getting links to click on that's going to get them infected and infect our network. And then recently we were able to lock down our Windows machines. So it used to be a student can put in a USB drive and they can run a program on a machine in the district. So that's been locked down now so that they can't do that anymore. They can't run any software that's not pre-installed by Chico Unified. Okay. You go to the next slide. All right. So security. So security is a program that we use. It's the filter that we use for our Chromebooks, but it does more than that too. So when the kids take their Chromebooks away from school, they're no longer behind the filter that Butte County Office of Education has. So they have to have a filter still on their Chromebook. That's security. So when they take that home, their devices are secure, they're filtered correctly. So this shows some of the things, as it filters the internet on those Chromebooks, it also then watches and records where they're going and what they're doing. So you can see from this one, the number one thing that's being blocked are games, right? That's the number one thing that security is blocking for us, are games. And the number one site that they're going to is Discord. So Discord is a gaming chat site.
So it's blocking that because parents wanted it to, or because it's just securely decided, or you decided, or something that we want to block that?
So it's doing that because we, as a district, decided to block games.
Yeah.
So we had a short list of games that were requested by staff that were allowed. All other gaming was blocked on devices.
So, like cool math games, for example, which sometimes has a little bit to do with math, and usually is just a huge time suck for my boys. But that's one on the approved list, I gather.
That was on the approved list. It no longer is. So
really?
It's most anything but math games. So so we are looking at those gaming sites that were requested by staff. We're putting into place a mechanism so that sites can be submitted, and then we can look at that and see if they really are academically based games or not.
Well, I really appreciate us being on this. As a parent with 3 kids in the system who, they have active little minds, those guys. And yeah, kids are drawn to video games, and sometimes they're drawn to it right in the middle of a history lesson, in class. So that's great.
They find those dozen websites that are open. They know about those. So we're going to be looking at those, and what will be available coming next school year will just be educational games. Because gaming is important for kids, though. I mean, it's like when I was a kid, they would bring in the movie projector. That might really ages me. They'd bring in the projector and show a movie, right? And so it was, the lights are down. It's like, oh, good, a movie. And so for kids, it's the same kind of thing, And there are some really great sites out there. Starfall, great site for young children to be able to learn ABCs, and it has games on there.
I have some reason to believe, I may have asked you about this or talked about this before, John, but that I've had guys bring home a Chromebook with a book or something stuffed in to keep it from closing all the way. Mm-hmm. Okay? And I have some limited reason to believe, I've never taken the time to do an experiment, but that if you open that up and you never properly closed it, that it worked, that thing they were looking at school, because the filtering is different at home versus at school. At school, you're able to access things on your Chromebook that you can't if your parents have blocked it at home. It might still be okay at school because the on-site filters don't take that stuff out that parents have programmed into securely. You're aware of that,
yes.
Right? But I'd like to have confirmed if that's true or not.
So that would be something I need to talk to security about to confirm that or not. So I've heard that might be happening, but I have not seen it yet. So I would need to talk to security and see if security has a means or Google has a means then to get around it, to cause that to stop. So oftentimes when we find something like this, there's oftentimes, almost every time, a solution that can be put into place to resolve that. And so that's where I really, for the public, our parents, if there is an issue, that I ask that you would bring it to our attention, because that's how we find these things out, and then we can go in and we can fix it. So, we've had issues where kids are getting around, there's millions of kids in this country who are trying to get around the filters on their Chromebooks. I mean, we have, 30 million kids who are running Chromebooks who are trying to figure out how to get around this stupid filter. To them, it's a stupid filter. So kids figure it out, and they post it on Reddit. So when something like that comes out, then we need to go and find a way to fix that. And so if you hear about something like this, please let us know, so that way we can put fixes into place.
I just realized, though, there's probably a bunch of kids at home watching this meeting on YouTube, and they heard me say that, and now they're all going to do it. Jeez, can't win.
So let me make a note about that.
That Matt can't win.
I'm going to really quick, sorry, John, take a minute to pause, just to let everybody know that I actually have to step out for a presentation for my organization that I couldn't get away from. And my intention is to be back ideally by the time we have our action calendar, but I will do my best to be here in a timely manner. And then I will follow up with questions if I have them, as well as watch the presentation recording on YouTube. So thank you for putting the time into this.
Great, okay.
And apologies for having to step out at this time. Just, it's been quite the week.
I'll see you in a little bit.
Thank you.
So then the next page here is also about security. Security, it scans through all the different files that are in student drives, looking for keywords that might be in there that could be of concern. And if it finds those, it sends alerts out then to our staff to let them know, hey, you need to look at this, and I get all of those. So I'm an administrator, so I see all those. And it's just a great system because it really helps us to identify kids who are struggling and having issues. And it gets our counselors involved early on. So it's a great system. And it goes beyond that too. So then the next slide, Security 24, takes that to the next level. So if the artificial intelligence and securities data center sees a progression of alerts come in that, hints that there might be some kind of an event coming, the student might do something severe, it will alert them, and then they can take the step then to call the police. And so, as you can see from this slide here, they've made 8 calls to the police so far, and so the system works. It's been very beneficial for us.
When I think about how many school shootings might have been avoided if we had had this kind of checking system. Yeah.
Yes. So from this, we're going to transition into classroom technology. I know that cybersecurity portion was kind of harsh. I know it's a difficult subject, but it really is the state of things today. And so I just, if there's any, if you have any questions or you have anything that you want to ask me at some point, please feel free to let me know. And I'm going to turn this over to Tim for right now.
All right. So I'm going to talk about the use of technology in the classroom, highlights of how technology is used in the classroom, because we could be here for days. We talked about every software system, et cetera, in use in Chico Unified. So first, what you see here is digital curriculum. So when we adopt a textbook, and this has been going on for quite a few years now, we get a digital copy. So students are able to access the textbook as well as enhanced content. Right here you can see a virtual field trip video that students can watch. The instructional strategies are modern instructional strategies that align with our approach to teaching in Chico Unified, which is the universal design for learning. We depend on these a lot. They're easier to go home. It's easier for a student to carry one Chromebook home with a handful of textbooks on it than a handful of textbooks home. So digital curriculum. And then social emotional surveys and services. We're able to leverage technology in the classroom to get a better read on where our students are as far as their physical and emotional safety, things like sense of belonging at school, mental health concerns. So we're able to get more robust data than ever on the status of our students.
That's kind of in the it's not all bad news category associated with technology. We all know that's a double-edged sword, right? I mean, the fact that these kids are like we're introducing them, right, wrong, or indifferent. We are introducing kids to a world where they're going to be looking at a screen a lot, and we know that that has a huge downside to it, because statistically, apparently, you can see that the people who are on social media all the time and stuff like that are getting more depressed. But I guess it's not, there's a silver lining in that at least we can kind of find really alarming search terms and things like that direct us to kids who might have some sort of crisis.
Right, correct.
And I'd like to add, so Chico was telling me about the new curriculum that's coming out. It's just amazing, because you can highlight a section and it'll read that to the student, and you can change the speed on that. You can click on a link that'll take you to something to explain what that is. So it gives kids so many options to be able to dig deeper into the lesson and really learn in a multimedia and an interactive way that they really are comfortable with. And so it's just it really is amazing. There are difficult things with technology right now with the cybersecurity, but the idea that I can have the mass of human knowledge in this device in my palm of my hand is amazing. So there are amazing things that technology can do as well. So it is a two-edged sword.
I totally agree with that. The internet is truly the most powerful research tool that has ever been created, bar none. I came of age in college and stuff like that, researching things in the library, right? Going to the card catalog and then pull a drawer out, you're looking for your topic. Maybe you're talking to the librarian, right? Who may be steering you toward this drawer or that drawer. Now, if you can think up, and I've gotten, in my opinion, quite good at this, just the right, obscure search terms. I mean, you're right there. The idea that we would keep kids away from that, somehow, and limit their exploration too much, you know, to a point where they weren't fluent at doing that, you know, would be, from an education standpoint, probably a mistake.
Agreed.
It's wrangling it in. So it's finding that balance between, you know, what the internet has to offer and the threats, and finding that protection for the kids. Yes.
So yeah, so back to the social emotional side of things, we have multiple ways via technology where students can request to speak to a counselor, an adult on staff. Kids can, in some cases, kids can scan a QR code on their phone to make a request. Kids are regularly presented with surveys where they can click a button and say, I would like to talk to an adult. And so that's been, especially given the last few years, you know, around our area, that's been huge for us. Okay, assessment is an important part of educating students. We give a variety of assessments for a variety of different reasons. Right now, we're in the middle of our state tests, which are given online. In addition, advanced placement tests are moving more and more to online. District common assessments, whether it's given on Illuminate or Renaissance Place to administer star reading, or IXL or iReady, all of that is done online. And in a lot of cases, those systems are able to give students instant feedback on how they did. And you know, we talked earlier about what kids love gaming, and kids love gaming because they get that instant feedback. They know exactly where they stand and maybe what they could do differently next time to go further in the game. Same way with education. You know, we talk a lot about instant feedback, whether it's on technology or whether the teacher is giving them students instant feedback based on a question they asked or reading over the shoulder of a student. It's hugely important, and technology allows us to leverage that. The reports that you see here, we see an iReady report and a star reading report. Will give teachers a huge amount of information on discrete skills in a lot of cases, where students need to get more help or where they're excelling. They're able to get broader areas of need or areas where students are excelling, and allows the teacher to reflect on what they're doing in the classroom. So hardware in the classroom, we have a lot, and John and his team have done a great job rolling out Chromebooks. So we've been on one-to-one for a while now, as far as Chromebooks go. Chromebooks have a 4-year life cycle in Chico Unified, so we purchase an average of about 3,500 a year, so we can keep cycling new Chromebooks into the rotation for students. We have over 20,000 currently being managed. And the reason why Chromebooks are chosen is the balance between price and performance. They're cheaper machines. If we spent $1,000 on a laptop per student, that laptop would still be out of date pretty quick, 4 years, 5 years max maybe. So it's cost efficient. John mentioned the Google admin console. We're able to manage those on an enterprise level as a district to lock them down. We can see traffic on certain websites. It gives us a lot of, the Chromebook gives us a lot of flexibility to meet our needs as a school district. The Viewsonic touchscreens have been a huge hit in all of our classrooms. Those purchases have been made probably over the last 4 years, I believe.
Yeah,
4 or
so
5 years.
we started putting those in using bond measure monies when we would redo a school, and then when COVID came, we were able to complete that project.
Yeah.
So Viewsonics are a touchscreen. So it's basically a modern whiteboard or a modern chalkboard with the enhanced capabilities of the internet and the software on the machine, et cetera, et cetera. So that's been a huge win for us and very popular with teachers and students. staff laptops. We were able to purchase recently laptops for staff. Through COVID, a lot of folks were working from home, and it is easier for adults with the software they're accessing to work on a laptop. So those have been provided for all staff members over the last couple of years. And again, everything I'm saying has been a huge, heavy lift for our IT staff, and it's been supported by senior cabinet approvals and board approvals, and that's why we've been able to keep up. Mm-hmm. Document cameras as well are out there. So a teacher can take a picture, write something down, and have it project very easily. So that's just an example of some of the hardware in the classroom, and I'll have John add.
So I want to mention on those document cameras. So we purchased document cameras with COVID monies, and the new model is 4K, so it's a really sharp picture, and it has a really big zoom, like an optical zoom that zooms way in. So you could put something on the table that's small. You know, if you're in a science class, you could put an insect or something there and zoom way in on it, almost like a microscope. And so it's just
cool.
It's an amazing tool that our teachers can use. And all these things that we're talking about here are in all of our classrooms.
Right, so as far as classroom management goes, managing the day-to-day workload, assignments, correcting assignments, et cetera, we use Google Classroom for. It allows teachers it's what teachers used for the most part to run their classrooms when we were remote. But even when we're not remote, it's dependent on to notify students of due dates, give details on assignments, provide resources. Teachers can grade. Any link that the teacher wants the students to see, they can post in Google Classroom, and it's just a very flexible tool. Our teachers have been trained over the years in a variety of settings. There's always a Google Classroom training available. We make sure our new teachers coming into our district know how to use it. So it's been an invaluable tool for us in managing student work and a classroom in general. Veering more off on the security side of things, but it's also a general classroom management tool is Goguardian, where teachers can add additional website filterings for the time period that those students are sitting in their classroom. They could see at any given time what students are looking at on their Chromebooks. They can set themselves up to receive off-task alerts if a student's going to websites that aren't part of the curriculum. And then teachers can also chat with kids during class. None of this is meant to take the place of traditional classroom management. Like, I didn't have Goguardian as a teacher, but if I didn't want my kids on certain websites or on the computer in general, just shut your Chromebooks. You can't. There's still that human factor in managing. Somebody still has to look at the screen. Somebody still has to, see what the kids are doing and deal with that. But it does give teachers a valuable and powerful tool.
I want to geek out on Goguardian for a couple of minutes because I see this as an important, since kind of realizing that securely, which is where you as the parent, you can control things that your kids are looking at on the computer at home, but that doesn't apply at school. That's the domain of the administration and the teacher. So should we be informing parents about, well, we're doing it right now, of course, but in a more pointed way, trying to explain to parents that here's kind of the lay of the land in terms of what keeps your kids from doing certain things at school. And if you have certain wishes or desires, take it up with your teacher, encourage your teacher to set up a scene on Goguardian. Is it a good idea for us to be empowering parents with all this information so that they can, if they've got an agenda? I mean, how many, Kelly Staley, a superintendent, have gotten to know me and my family pretty well over this stuff, because my wife and I were very interested in monitoring and sort of trying to manage our kids' activity. We don't like them wasting time in class and stuff like that. How many parents do you think really are interested, on that level? I'm embarrassing myself here by asking you this question, because I'm sure I must be a freak of nature.
Yeah, I have honestly no idea. I do think it's always a good idea to make sure that parents know the resources that we have. And, parenting runs that wide spectrum from those that are, hey, we're going to let you do things and fall down and then pick you back up, to ones we're going to prevent you to getting to that point.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I think that parents.
Sorry, man. As a former principal, especially when we first started rolling them out in carts and those types of things, and when phones came readily available for every student, we had different things that families would ask us to do at different levels. Towards the end of March, we had some families would say, all right, I have a way for my child to log into Google at home with my desktop computer and those types of things. I'm going to have them log in. I want this to stay in the teacher's classroom, so my kid's not having it from to and from school and those types of things. We'd have it from that level all the way to a parent not saying anything and having the child just bringing it back and forth. Those are all adjustments we make. But I can tell you, since we rolled out the big rollout when we needed to go full online, when we went completely online, we haven't come back to our teachers and say, these are, again, all the safeguards that you can do in your classroom. We do it on our new teacher training every year, but again, we want to go back. Now that every student has one, all the way down to elementary. When we come back in August this next year, we'll be doing training again for every one of our teachers, and we do an all-day training day. And one of the sessions that every teacher will get, elementary, junior high, and high school, again, is how to do the scene. How do you work your Goguardian? If a parent's asking you, these are things you can do. You can pull up every screen, every computer screen on your Vizio, so you can see when a kid is supposed to be doing maybe research in an English thing, and they all of a sudden now open up another tab. They can shut that computer down right there, from their desk. So we just need to go again, going back over with our staff, which we will in August, because we talked about that. John and his team will be doing that for every one of our staff members. And then, Matt, you bring up a great thing. I think back to school night or whatever, these are things is available to your kid and our teachers. Talk to us what you want for your student or your classroom, what we'll be doing in those things technology-wise to make parents more aware. I think the most things we can do that is back to school nights, because that's when we get our largest amount of parents coming back on campus. And we can also, we have things on our website that we can push out too, but I just want to know that is something that, since we've had these conversations, that we need to go back and remind everybody what we're handing to our students.
That sounds great. Another thing we talked about in our meeting that we had, we had a meeting about this because I'm on the subcommittee or whatever for this topic. The idea of pushing the concept of citizenship, right? Like digital citizenship, right? Once I had one of my guys, who shall remain unnamed, once my wife found he had about 100 tabs opened on in his Chromebook. Maybe he's just wasting his life away, and mine too, doing that. But maybe he wanted to hide something on one of those tabs, or something like that. He's sneaking around the teacher or something like that. Well, that would be the sort of thing that, we want to discourage that, right? We want him to develop, responsibility and use these resources appropriately. So I think that concept of digital citizenship for kids would be a good thing to mention and kind of circulate that concept.
I also think we need to recognize our quality of teachers, which I think is quite high. And so for my very bright 6-year-old, it's very simple. He sits in front of her because that's the quickest and easiest control function, for a kid that's is going to be doing something in a further part of the class.
And
So-
that reminds me, Dr. Kaiser, I want to make a point too. Hey, I mean, we're not paying these people, these teachers, to be in there and be a bunch of like little, you know, like babysitter cyber cops. I understand that they've got a complicated job to do. And, you know, this is going to be one part of what they're doing, but you know, too much it can't diminish from the main thing, which is to teach an entire classroom full of kids, which I, you know, recognize is a very, you know, challenging job and has many different facets. So
one thing we can do, so when we do additional training on Goguardian for our staff in the fall, this will give them an extra tool. So for any teachers who don't use this or haven't seen the power of this tool, it'll open a new door for them, because it's, you know, you're seeing a screen then on that slide right there that shows, you know, 7 or 8 Chromebook screens and what's currently on those screens, and that's what a teacher would see. There's another screen that has color bars, and so each website has a different color bar. So if all the bars are the right color, you know all the kids are on task. If one bar is a different color, they just have to glance and see, oh, that person's not on task. And they can go back and look and see what they're doing. If they go back and close the tab, you can go back and Goguardian and see what was going on 2 minutes ago or 10 minutes ago or 3 hours ago. And we can help them to automate so when class starts, it automatically launches a scene that gives them, you know, it limits what kids can do. And so it's a very powerful tool.
Right, and you know, we talked a lot about kids essentially going off task in the classroom, and that's happened forever. It will always happen.
Yeah.
This just gives them a tool. So this gives them another tool up their sleeves to make sure their students are on task, even beyond like a security concern or looking at anything appropriate. Teachers want to know their kids are working on the stuff they should be working on. So very nice tool. So when we talk college and career readiness, it's everywhere. Technology is everywhere. Right when kids get accepted into a college, they're given a portal. All parts of the college logistical experience are online. They're registering for classes. Their class calendars are there, assignments, et cetera, course catalogs. So technology is embedded into colleges as well. And, you know, like it has been said numerous times here, we want our students to go off and succeed and not have technology be a hurdle in college. As far as career goes, recruitment and job seeking, the most basic thing is done online now. Basic computer skills are present in just about any job description.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, as the job market continues to change, and the job market will look different in 10 years than it does right now, the one thing that we can be sure of is that technology will play a large part in that. And the bigger head start we can give our kids, the better. And then, of course, again, like what we saw the student presentation today from the Chico High students, those higher level tech skills, you know, kids are hungry for them, number one, and they're highly marketable. You know, if you're a coder, you can pretty much work wherever you want. You know, you have a job somewhere. If you're a database person, you can work wherever you want. You have a job somewhere.
Database person, send them to me, because we.
Yeah, that was a plug for any database people out there for us. And then, you know, before we get to questions, I just wanted to bring up the Chico Unified Mission Statement. And you can see there in bold is we want our students to confidently participate in a changing global society. You know, we're all very well aware of the role technology plays in that, and it's not going away anytime soon. So that is a big part of how we're making kids ready, both academically and with the tech-specific skills.
So with that, any questions?
I think one of the things that, well, first of all, Chico Unified, we had all of our students equipped with Chromebooks before Chico State had their students. And it was in the similar, shutdown from COVID. So I think that kudos to how quickly and effectively you were able to respond. And the second part of that is the FBI and our consultant guy, they're talking about major criminal gangs and going after big ticket items, but a student who doesn't understand when they're exposing themselves and their own checkbook or their own, whereabouts, by their lack of being at least credibly prepared that they could be hacked, that's a serious risk to them and to their families. So I think that's another aspect of this where we are trying to make them understand that it can be dangerous in a different way for them to just randomly go off and jump into some kind of site. So I think that's very important.
So,
yes,
so I need to be mindful of the fact that today I got a message from AT&T thanking me for paying my bill and that they'd love to give me a gift.
Gift card. Gift cards are always good. Don't want me to send her some.
I'll tell you, we have systems that send automated emails to our teachers, and often a teacher will email me and say, "Can I open this?" Because John's put the fear of God into them regarding phishing. So our staff is very well conscious of that, and I agree, Kathy, we do need to
But it's
work on
happening
getting our kids aware.
so often with the things that I try to do business with in the world that I as much as possible, I just don't anymore. It's too scary because I'm not sophisticated enough to know how sophisticated they are. And I have a daughter in IT who does the security stuff, and she does this, "Oh, God, Mom, I can't believe you did that," way too often, because they're clever. And I do appreciate the phishing emails, and most of them I've caught, so.
They work, and we've seen a huge improvement with our staff on the number of clickers. So they're called clickers in the system. So the number of clickers has dropped substantially. So that is working very well.
So,
yeah.
We've done the one-to-one Chromebook rollout. We've got the Viewsonics, the touchscreen. Do you have an idea what the next big thing is?
Gosh, it's hard to say. AI is coming into its own, and so, in the next few years, AI-based things, probably in the cloud, would be something to really watch for. I know I thought that 3D, the virtual reality glasses would just take off, but, I get motion sick on them. Maybe others do too. It just has not flown. It's there, but it just hasn't flown like I thought it would. So, but yeah, I think AI maybe is something to really keep an eye on.
What about the metaverse? Is the metaverse in our future here at Chico Unified?
It's not in my world. So that's the new Facebook, is the metaverse. And so it just seems strange to have these icons for yourself. It's odd. Yeah. I don't know if that's a good investment.
Kids can just lay at home, like in dark closets with weird glasses on, and they can just be in a virtual classroom and yeah, how about that? I don't think so either. Well, thank you. I think that was great.
Yeah,
Thank you.
excellent presentation. Complicated subject. Thanks. Okay, so Caitlin is not expected to be back until 6:45, correct? 7:45. Oh. Okay, so we do have our discussion action calendar. And on it, we have our resolution 1577-22 increasing the level 1 school fees. It's good to see you back, Julie.
Thank you to everyone for your well wishes. Appreciate them very much. Good evening. Thank you for having me here this evening. We have Lynn Gruber on the phone from Koppel and Gruber. They are our consultant that developed the fee justification study for the district. Lynn, see you there. Hello. Thank you for being here tonight. If you want to, we're going to just go over a quick review. I'm not sure what was covered 2 weeks ago, so we're just going to do a quick review, and then Lynn has some slides to cover as well. So we'll go through them quickly as possible.
All right.
If you have any questions, please stop us, okay?
Okay.
Okay, so we're here to talk about developer fees. Oops. There we go. I think I hit the wrong button, sorry about that. There we go. So what are developer fees? Back in 1986, the state legislature passed AB 2926 that allows school districts to collect developer fees on residential and commercial property in order to fund construction and reconstruction of school facilities as a result of new development. Why do we collect them? It is our mission and is integral to board adopted goals to provide safe, healthy, and positive learning environments for the students we serve. Our district has made a promise to our community to leverage all available funding sources in order to implement our facilities master plan. The master plan was developed by our community, by our schools, parents, teachers, and staff, and was adopted by the Board of Education. Yes.
When was that adopted?
Originally, it was adopted in 2012, and it has been modified, updated 3 times.
When was the most recent?
2019.
And it talks about facilities.
Correct.
Right? And that's all I have for now.
Okay.
Carry on.
Okay. The current facilities master plan, that's the 2019 version, describes an overall need of $590 million for our facilities. This is a page out of the master plan, which shows the implementation schedule. We're currently in phase 4. The red line shows where we were at in December of 2019 when we passed this, or when the board adopted this master plan. You could shift it over most of the way through the Pleasant Valley High School project and completed with Chico High, and we have begun with the programming for McManus at this point.
What's the duration of how long this plan, as in theory, was going to take? And forgive me if you said that already.
Not a problem. I have the dates that were projected. 2031 is the final date, but it is dependent upon fund availability. We don't have all of the funds to do all of the projects.
Isn't it also impacted by the fact the law just changed and we have a whole new group of children who will be our responsibility?
Yes, we will be putting out an RFQ for consultant services in the form of an architect to come in and assess our facilities and help us figure out how we are going to provide essentially double the amount of kindergarten classrooms at our schools in order to house the TK community.
Mm-hmm.
So this slide shows developer fee revenue over the last 10 years. Average, we bring in about $2.8 million per year in developer fees, and in the last 10 years, total of $28.3 million. This is a list of projects in the last 10 years that were funded with developer fees or partially funded with developer fees. So you see the project and then you see the dollar amount that follows. Those dollars are developer fee dollars that were spent on the project. It's very common that we combine Measure E, Measure K, state funding, developer fees, everything we can get our hands on to fund the projects that are in the master plan. So the grand total there is $29.8 million in the last 10 years of developer fees spent on these projects. So this slide gives you historical information about developer fees since 2012. So the first column is, of course, the year, and the second column is what the fee was adopted for that year. And then the percentage of increase, the commercial rate, and then the impact per student, per square foot on the community for housing the student in a classroom. $5, and you can see the $5.40. The last column is the difference between the residential fee that the district is allowed to collect and the impact that is proven in the justification study. And the dollar amount at the very last column is the impact or the deficit. So for instance, 2022, the rate, if adopted, would be $4.79 per square foot for residential development. The impact is actually $6.99, so there's a deficit of $2.20 per square foot.
Yeah.
Briefly, can you explain to us how the impact is decided? Like what goes into finding that number?
Yes, I will let Lynn answer that question. Lynn?
Sure. And Ashley, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Actually, I'll be going through that in my slides, but the impact is calculated through the fee justification study.
By the state, correct?
Well, the rates that you can charge are adopted by the state allocation board. And then once those rates are adopted by the state allocation board, each district has to do a fee justification study to prove that they are justified in levying up to those fees.
So in the justification study, we have the formula for that impact per square foot?
Yes, and I'll be going through that.
Thank you. I must have
through
missed it.
the
I
slides.
apologize.
No worries.
Okay, and then we're going to hand it over to Lynn. She's going to take over the next few slides. Just let me know when you want me to push ahead.
Okay, sounds good. So as I said, the state allocation board determines the fee, and that is based upon the statewide cost index for Class B construction. And this is set forth in Government Code 65995. And the state allocation board, or the SAB, reviews these fees and adjusts these fees every 2 years. So we're always kind of looking backward at the increase that we've already seen. And as we know, these last couple of years, we've seen significant increases in the cost of construction. The fees were adjusted in February of 2022 up to $4.79 per square foot of residential construction and 78 cents for commercial construction. Next slide. So as I said before, each district is required to have a fee justification study prepared, and that study demonstrates the nexus of the requirements and the fees. And the nexus requirements are set forth in Government Code Section 66,000, which sets forth how to calculate the fees for any type of impact. So cities also use 66,000 for like how much a sewer costs, the sewer impact fee costs, the library impact fee, all of the fees that public agencies charge new development are governed by Government Code 66,000, not just school districts. That requires us to identify the purpose of the fee, the relationship between the fee and new development, and then the relationship of the fee amount and the facility's cost attributed to the new development. And then there's an annual accounting of those fees collected. Next slide. So this goes into your question of the study methodology. And first, I'll go through the residential. First, what we do is estimate the cost per student in the case of Chico for the eligible modernization projects. And this is based upon the 2019 master plan costs. Then we project the student enrollment from new housing, and we use student generation rates. In the case of Chico, you recently had King Consulting do an enrollment study for you, and those student generation rates were based on the housing that has been built in recent years, and they were deemed to be sufficient for this study. Then we look at the projected residential development that is expected to be built within the next 10 years. We utilize recorded track maps, approved track maps, or projects that are actively seeking approval. And through that process, reaching out to the city of Chico, we've determined that there's the potential for approximately 3,117 units to be built in the next 10 years. Then we look at the cost impact, and the cost impact is the total cost of the master plan divided by the school district's capacity. And then we look at the average student per household divided by the average square footage of new housing units. And since 2016, that average is, for the past 10 years, that average has been 1,400 square feet for the average unit. Next slide, unless you have questions there. Okay. So in our report, the cost per housing unit is approximately $9,791 divided by 1,400 square feet, which is the average unit size, equals the impact of $6.99 per square foot.
So I'm sorry, what does that $9,791 reflect?
That is the cost based on the per student average of the current capacity. So that's your, the current capacity of the district is about 12,931, I think it is. And that divided by the master plan cost of that $590 million that Julie was talking about earlier. And then that's divided by the number of units.
So who bears that cost, that 9791?
Well, that's attributed to all the housing units through the district, right? Because we can only charge new development for their impact. And certainly the cost of the total master plan is borne by not only new development, but existing development as well. The commercial impact is set forth in the code as well. We have to use employee generation rates per each category of commercial, and those are based on a San Diego study that was done many years ago. So if you're wondering why we have a San Diego reference in your fee justification study, that's because of the code requirements. And new employees also create new housing needs, and therefore students and inter-district students impact school facilities. So folks that work within the district but don't live within the district also have an impact. We do take off a residential offset. So any new housing that houses employees, we subtract that off of the impact, and then that net cost impact is what we are, what's eligible to be charged on a per square foot. And the next slide shows those as set forth in the fee justification study. And if you recall, we are only allowed to charge 78 cents per square foot. So each of these categories is well above the 78 cents per square foot, except for residential self-storage. And that's so low because there are typically very few employees for quite a bit of square footage of building. And then the next slide talks about redevelopment. So this is, we need to determine the net impact between existing development and new development. And we only charge for the additional impact. So if you have a 2,000 square foot home that is, say, demolished and it's replaced by a 3,000 square foot home, we would only charge the residential fees on the net impact of the 1,000 square feet. Next slide. The adoption process, we provided a public review and notice period, and that is required by law to be at least 10 days. Hold the public hearings, which we did at the last board meeting. And then the next step would be to consider and adopt the resolution, and then the fees would be effective 60 days after the adoption date. And I think I'll turn it back to Julie to go over the actual timeline of the notification.
Thank you. So this slide is just in response to some questions that we had received from the board after the last board meeting. So the notice regarding the study and its availability for review was in the Chico Enterprise Record on March 15th and then again on March 29th. And the study, the draft study was made available at our district office beginning March 15th and available for review by any citizen. The final study was also available at the district office on April 5th. Copies of the study were sent to a company called Seacon Financial Construction Company on 3 occasions, March 15th, March 28th, and March 21st. On the March 15th occasion, we sent it to them because they always request them from us, so we automatically sent it to them. And then 2 individuals from their company requested it on those other dates, so we sent it then as well. With that, I will open it up for questions.
So I need to have a good understanding. What's going to happen if we don't approve this increase? I've gotten to know, the team here, and I know that everyone in this room has nothing but the best intentions with every facility that we build and the way that we manage all these facilities and the things that we do with them and the kids that we educate. I thought long and hard before giving any pushback on this at all, because, I know that the heart of this organization is good. And the money would be used, state contracting rules like prevailing wage and stuff like that notwithstanding, this money would go to good use in terms of building better educational facilities for our kids. So what is going to happen if we don't approve this today?
Well, the short answer is the other funding sources that are available to the district will bear the burden of funding the implementation of the master plan. We would continue to collect the fees that were adopted 2 years ago.
And so what are those other sources?
So we have Measure E. We have one more draw on Measure E in 3 years. We have Measure K, which we have taken our last draw of Measure K, bond measure. We have state facilities program grants. We have applied for every state facilities grant that we possibly can. Us receiving money for those grants is dependent on the state selling bonds and adopting bonds. We have several projects, approximately $14 million, that have been approved by the Office of Public School Construction to refund the district for the funds we've spent on previous projects. And we don't, at this point, know when those funds will come to us because we're not in control of that schedule.
So if I said, hey, Ms. Kissel, the state's loaded, right? We're always hearing about the budget surplus they've got there, and we know they're nuts for education down there. If we just said, we think that money's going to come in to help us fulfill the plan, do you agree with that?
I would love to agree with you on that. The fact of the matter is, if we have $14 million waiting to be funded from the state, you could imagine what every other school district in the state has in their, their applications that are in. And the way it works is they fund projects until they run out of funding approval, and then they continue to review and approve projects beyond bond authority. And then when the bond authority is there, they will fund the projects from the top of the list down, and then when they run out of money, they will cut them off.
And the state also allocates funding based upon a formula of grants, which have historically not been representative of the costs of construction.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? You kind of were muddled there at the very end.
Oh, sorry. So the state funds based upon eligibility of the school district as well as a grant formula. And the grant formulas were initially set forth to represent approximately 50% of the construction costs. And now we're estimating them to actually cover about 30 to 33% of the construction costs of what they are funding.
And they do expect the districts to pick up the remaining percentage, either with local bond dollars or developer fees.
I think the other aspect of this is every single school district has a new group of students that now by law are available to come, and that's the 4-year-olds. And that also means very different structures to the rooms, to how they are handled, how they're processed. And so it's not just the kids that will come in with new houses built. We will have kids who will come in who are already here. They just weren't eligible, and now they are. And that's, the law didn't say wait till we got money. The law said next year. Eileen?
Thank you. What I'm going back to is the hand-wringing that we did during the years that we were putting together the facilities master plan, and how much work went into itemizing the need of every single school in the district, where we stood with our portables, with the maintenance that we hadn't been able to do for so many years. And when we put that facilities master plan together and put it out over about 30 years, 12 to 30, yeah. We knew that the funding was the issue. But that if the district was going to upgrade to the point where education was being determined by the need for education, rather than education being determined by the condition of our facilities, which was the goal. We wanted our facilities to reflect what we needed to do with our kids. And thanks to your work and your predecessors in pulling in every single possible bit of funding and to the citizens of Chico who passed the bonds with the, with the guarantee that we provided about what the taxes were going to do. If you go out through our district now compared to what we were looking at in 2010 and 2012, it worked. Our school district is looked up to as one of the shining stars in Northern California. That's why we're not a declining enrollment district, I think. And now we're faced with a wish come true. As educators, we've known that the most impact you can have on a child's success in later life is to get them into school as young as possible. And after years of pounding on our state legislators to make it possible for us to bring those 4-year-olds into public education, we have that threshold in front of us. The only problem is, where do you get the $29 million to house them? I don't want to be responsible for doing anything to make it harder for us to realize the dream of bringing our 4-year-olds in under our umbrella and giving every one of our kiddos the best possible shot at their lives. I understand that, there's always an issue of what's the impact. And I'm not blind to the fact that developers, they have a job to do. And making it possible for new homes and new developments to move forward is their job. And I appreciate that because that's what supplies us with a vibrant community. However, if you don't have a vibrant school district to pull those people into those new developments, you're fighting a losing battle. I want Chico Unified to continue to reflect the best possible vision for our kids. And so I couldn't live with myself for not voting to approve this increase. It means too much to the district. It means too much to our community. I know that the city council has moved to expand on how developments and others are zoned. That's opening up a more robust opportunity for development, both residential and commercial. And so what I see ahead are good things. But part of that good things is to make sure that the school district can do what we need to do to bring our 4-year-olds in to an environment that is conducive to their learning, in an environment that is where 4-year-olds can reach the handles and sit in the right. I mean, I remember when we had to put junior high kids into an elementary, and they couldn't function in those little facilities. But we didn't have the money to put the proper facilities there for the kids. I don't want to be in that position right now with this amazing opportunity we have to bring 4-year-olds in. So I am, I'm very much in support of doing what we are legally entitled to, doing what our study has shown we have justification to do, and with apologies to developers that may feel that it is hampering them. I'm not blind to that feeling in the field. But overall, I think it helps everyone. It helps the developers bring in, new people into a community that values their kids.
I'm going to open it up to public comment at this point, and then we can come back to the board in terms of questions or commentary. So do we have anybody from the public who wants to comment?
We do have 3 people that have signed up.
3 people, okay.
Yes, first is Mr. Bill Webb.
Okay, and they get 3 minutes. You'll see a card over here.
A card, nothing, no green light, red light, yellow light, or whatever. Thank you, board. My name is Bill Webb. I'm representing Chico Builders Association, also representing the community homeowners and renters in our town and our county. I think one thing that's lacking, or maybe missing, or maybe it just wasn't explained very well, it's not just the city of Chico, obviously, that we're looking at. We're also looking at the surrounding county areas that have development as well. So we'll get into that a little bit more. But as a builder, developer, and a home provider, because we also have apartments, we're very used to paying fees. That's one thing that we're accustomed to paying is our fair share. We're also cognizant of the cost to our home buyers and our renters. So what's before you tonight, if we're using the 1,400 square foot mean for the unit size and a 71-cent increase, is about $1,000 per unit cost that ultimately gets passed to the homeowner or renter. National Association of Home Builders puts out an annual survey across the whole country of every city, county, and state based on the median income level, home costs. This would price out $1,000 increase, would price out about 91 individuals or homes from purchasing that home. So these times we're confronted with increasing costs on a daily, weekly basis. So just another $1,000. Made me think, well, what has happened in the school district over the last 20 plus years? So we went back and we pulled enrollment. Since 1999, your enrollment's decreased. Yet in the city of Chico alone, we have built over 10,000 units. So now we're going to project another 10 years and build 3,000 units. How are we justifying that enrollment's going to go up 642 students? I get the TK4. But how do we justify 640 kids when we've built over 10,000 units over the last 23 years and enrollment's gone down? I would just ask you to look into that and the nexus of where we're at on that. The other thing that's, I don't want to say misleading, but maybe inaccurate in the report is the 3,117 odd homes or units to be built over the next 10 years. Historically in Chico, we build 500 units a year. That's single family and multifamily. If you extrapolate that over 10 years, that's 5,000 units. So where are they coming up with? This doesn't count anything built in the county. Is that 30 seconds or 30 seconds? Okay. Well, so to wrap up, school fees don't solve the problem. They're a small amount of your cost allocations. So the difference between not collecting and collecting the increase is about $500,000. You're still going to collect over $3 million annually. We don't oppose school bonds. We don't oppose that. It just seems like this is the low-lying fruit that allows you to grab money. So we'd like you to consider, a no increase, or maybe there's something we can gradually step into. Thank you.
Jim Paul.
Hello, Chris Giampali, Chico Builders Association as well, and Epic Homes. Been home builders in Chico area with my dad and I for the last 30, 40 years. This is it's a difficult decision because I understand where you're coming from. You see where you can get the fees, and it makes it easy. And it's validated by a fee structure, but it doesn't necessarily always need to be maxed out at that fee level. The nexus fees need to show a really reasonable relationship between the fee and the use and the cost of it. Well, in the county and the state has lost and has decreased in population this year and the year before. The county in the last 5 years has decreased 15.56% in population. So if you look at back years ago, say 2010, there's 219,000 folks in the county. Today there's 185,000. So if we take the relationship between the enrollment, which has gone down in the last 10 years, and then the population decreasing, I don't see the justification of why we need to increase the cost. I mean, I'm not saying to get rid of anything, by no means, but it doesn't seem like it follows through with the actual the graph that's been put before us. Meanwhile, Bill brings up that yes, it does show that it's been consistent, about 12,000 units, but in the next 3, 4, 5, 6 years, the amount of housing that you have in your own report shows it going down to almost 50 houses. So the report itself is a little bit misleading, showing that you have a negative single-family and multifamily amount of housing that's going to be built. The capacity is 935. We have 634 or somewhat of that like to be fulfilled in the next 10 years. But at the same time, the enrollment is it's saying that it's going up, but the population of the county keeps going down. And the state's population keeps going down. So there's got to be some inverse relationship between that as well. I hear the example of what you folks are talking about with the T4s, but how many of those T4s, and the relationship needs to be with how there's a new building and new construction, and that's how the relationship for the fee gets charged to the builder. And so there might be this, and I think it's a great opportunity to have the new 4-year-olds, but is that direct reaction from new building and new multifamily, or is it, as you said, is it existing folks that are already there? So sure, there might be some more folks that may be coming in or younger kids, but it needs to be a reasonable relationship between that and building. I thank you guys for your time, and I know it's a tough decision, but thank you.
And Katie Tillman.
The other thing I wanted to mention is Julie does an excellent job too.
Hi, I'm Katie Toma, and I'm the Executive Director for Chico Builders Association. And I want to thank you for the grace that you extended to us by extending this for 2 weeks. I'm new to the position and haven't wrapped my head around all your protocols. So thank you for that. We really appreciate that. I'm hoping that by now you all did get a copy of the letter that we sent. If you didn't, I have copies. And so my role right here is I'm going to read to you what we sent you. So thank you for honoring our request. Okay, at the last board meeting, we stated an increase in fees could actually price some folks out of the dream of home ownership. Mr. Lando challenged me on that and said he wanted to see some evidence of that, of which we did provide. That's already been alluded to, that in fact, an increase of $1,000 would price out 91 households as a result of that. One of the things that I believe it was Bill didn't mention, is that mortgage rates are increasing significantly, as you've probably watched, and also the cost of materials. So that 91 number is probably very conservative.
A question for clarification on that,
Sure.
Ms. Toma. So what does that mean? 91 people want to buy a house. Say a police officer or a teacher moves into town. Right. What is this?
So according to the National Home Builders Association, if you increase in Chico, if you increase the price of a home in Chico by $1,000, you are disenfranchising or not allowing 91 households to purchase a home based on the median income. So if you look at the chart, so the median income is of a new home is $341,847, and then you goes on, and then the number of households That shouldn't have a dollar sign in front of it. So those that can afford it is 17,788, those that can't. But the 91 would be priced out by the $1,000 increase. Does that make sense? Okay. And then the other thing we wanted to challenge was in the letter that was really important, and this was also brought up, were the number of units that would actually be built over the next 10 years. And if you looked at the graph that we supplied, that the average building in the last 20 years has been an average of 490 units. And so when we use that number, we project that the number of units built over by 2029 would be 4,860, using your student enrollment at 642, using the 1,400 square foot, that the actual square footage cost is $4.49, not the $6.99 that the consultant came up with. Also, the excess capacity. Currently, you have an excess capacity of 935 students. That wasn't discussed in the calculations, and you have a projected student enrollment of 642 over the next 10 years. So we're wondering where the correlation is between the impact of new construction. 30 seconds? Okay, you're making me nervous. The impact of new construction, that you already have the I'm not losing my train of thought, but you already have the excess capacity now, and with a projected enrollment of 642 students over the next 10 years, we don't see where the impact will be.
Before you go.
Sure.
I just want to clarify that my question was not about whether this was going to raise housing prices, and it will.
Yeah.
People will get
Yeah,
anytime.
$5,000,
Yeah.
right.
My question was, do we have any evidence that school districts actually taking these fees has an actual impact on whether developers choose to build or not? Like, do we have a case study in which a group did take the fee and the number of houses built went down, or they didn't and the number of houses built increased?
Okay, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. But I can tell you that the increase by 1,000 does eliminate 91 households, which is really significant.
I am very aware of that, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so any other questions? Welcome back, Caitlin. Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you. I just have a couple of things to add regarding the information provided by the Chico Builders Association. Kelly pointed out to me that the enrollment numbers that they're seeing from several years ago, would you say year? But the year that they started? 1999 through now have decreased, but we have had a significant growth in charter schools in our district over that period of time, and the charter school students are not added to the district's enrollment. However, we do provide school facilities for a majority of them. So there is a little bit of a difference there.
Question on that. Who are the ones that we do provide facilities for versus the ones that we don't? And do we get paid for that or not?
We do not get paid in the form of rent, no. We have Forest Ranch Charter School, Nord Charter School, Chico Country Day, Inspire School of Arts and Sciences.
And Sherwood Montessori.
Sherwood Montessori School, and they're housed at Chapman.
And who are the ones that don't benefit from Chico facilities?
The only ones that we're not responsible for providing facilities for are those that are not chartered by Chico Unified, and right now that would be CORE. They're part of our bond, but they are not they're approved by Butte County Office of Ed. Blue Oak is also one of ours.
Yes.
And Achieve?
Achieve.
One of ours?
The list is growing.
So that does represent a significant number of students that aren't shown in those enrollment data from the state. The second thing I wanted to point out, Chris is correct, that not all 4-year-olds that come to us as TK students are generated from new development, but some are. Not all, but some are, yes. I also wanted to point out the priced out table that is in the letter is from data from 2021. And I looked up the data from 2022 for Chico, and that number of priced out residents is down to 47 instead of 91. And then at the table where they were talking about Lynn and her folks not projecting as much development as there actually is going to be, the math, I believe the math in the table doesn't adequately address it, because if you say there's going to be 4,860 units built, you also have to calculate how many students would be generated at that higher number. So the 642 number would increase as well. They both have to go up. More development means we're going to generate more students from that development. And that's the only comments that I have on the letter. Thank you for bringing it, and thank you for speaking tonight.
I have a comment on our approved master plan, which is we're in phase 4, but phase 5 is our next cycle. And that includes Rosedale, Little Chico Creek, Chapman, Parkview, Fairview, and Citrus. Those are a number of our schools in the lowest income areas, and yet they're next to where a huge amount of construction is expected. Little Chico Creek is already anticipated to be significantly impacted by the construction in that area. So those are the schools that are sitting there waiting for their turn in the master plan. Yes?
Yeah, thank you. There was some comments about how we have capacity existing for 900 such extra students, but I know that when we're looking at our demographics and our master plan, we calculate capacity in a couple different ways. So do we know whether that number is the, in my head I call them the comfortable number or the sardines in a can number?
I don't know that answer to that question, and I'm not sure if Lynn does, if it was the target capacity or the maximum capacity that was utilized for the study.
Let me see if I can look that up. I believe it was the capacity based on state loading standards, which is probably not quite sardine, but closer to sardine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's based on the state loading standards.
So the max.
Thank you.
You may have covered this, but I remember last year Governor Newsom was announcing some odd $1 billion that we were going to spend statewide on TK expansion. And I think you did kind of mention it, but can you talk more about that money, where it is now, and when it's going to get to us?
Sure, I can tell you what I know about that. I'm a member of the CASH organization, Coalition for Adequate School Housing, and we have a conference every winter. And at our latest conference in February, I learned that the mechanism that the state is going to implement to fund projects for school districts in California to implement transitional kindergarten will be based on free and reduced lunch count for those districts. So what I was told is that every district that applies will get one funded project for one school. And then the state will go back to the top of the list, and the top of the list being the most needy schools with the highest free and reduced lunch count, and all of their projects will get funded. And they'll move to the next district, and all of their projects will get funded. And they'll move to the next, and all of those projects will get funded. Now, we do know, because we learned recently, that the state has a surplus of funds. We've all been reading about it in the paper. So we are hopeful that our district will get funded for more than one project. But 2 weeks ago, this board approved a resolution to apply for our project that we already completed at Emma Wilson, where we added 3 new kindergarten classrooms that qualify for that funding. So that's the project that we're applying for. And then our second project will be McManus Elementary School, which you know we're in design for right now. But as far as I know right now, our district is only going to be funded for one project.
This is a question for anybody who can answer it, because I missed the council meeting last night. Did the city take their full share of what they were allotted in terms of raising their fees? I'm just curious if there's ever a jurisdiction or agency that chooses to take less than the max, and I haven't heard of one.
You mentioned to me over the phone a couple of weeks ago that there was a time when we didn't actually, you can clarify this comment, there was a time when we didn't so much collect these fees.
Right. Looking at the historical data over the last couple of weeks, there's been 2 periods of time where the district didn't suspend the fees, but suspended an increase of fees for a short period of time. Most recently, I believe, was just after the campfire. I believe the developers came forward and requested that we delay the implementation, and we did so. I believe it was a 6-month delay.
Julie, wasn't there also a period of time that we did not collect any commercial fees? We only did residential?
Yes, for a 4-year period, we didn't increase the collection of commercial. I don't know about other districts or other agencies, but that's what I know about Chico Unified.
Are you trying to get?
Please.
And they had a lot of conversation about the fees, right, that were there, because there's a massive amount of fees going through. And so they were talking kind of about the same thing. And there was some debate about pushing aside the commercial fees and doing, a different meeting for that. And at the end of the day, they passed them all. But the biggest issue, did they do the commercial ones? No, they pushed them back to the plan. Okay, all of them? Okay. The construction fees. But the one thing for me that stood out was the homeless advocates that were there, and they're always there talking about affordable housing. And a big chunk of what's in development is for affordable housing. And so my question is, the impact on affordable housing, in addition to the impact to the 47 or 91 homes that people are going to be priced out of, what is this going to do for the affordable housing community when they're not going to be able to then, again, be able to afford the rent and afford the housing? And now we're, again, back on this whole hamster wheel with the homeless community, and they can't find housing, and it just seems to me that needs to be part of the conversation too. So thank you.
So I'm going to close the public hearing and then move back to the board in terms of our decision about adopting the resolution 1577-22, which at this point addresses increasing the level 1 school fees just to the point that had been validated by the state and by our own study, correct? Okay. So, so I also wanted to get clarification. So when I believe you were talking about the gap, you're talking about the gap between what our costs are to actually do the new construction and how much impact the fee increase affects that, correct?
Correct. The difference between the impact and what we're allowed to collect.
Okay. I just want to make sure because that wasn't laid out. So does anyone else have questions or clarifications that they want?
I have a question that I tuned in on my way back over here, so I heard some of the public comment, but I missed the presentation, read through the presentation. We met yesterday, so I've gotten a lot of questions answered already. I just wanted to ask, because I think this question got asked last time, and I don't know if it got answered completely or correctly, but is it possible to approve a certain percent increase, whatever it may be, whether it's the full 17.4% or some iteration of in between, and/or the real question I'm asking right now, sorry, is to phase it in over the next 2 years. So do part of the increase this year and then push the second half of that increase, or the additional part of that increase to next year.
It's certainly at the discretion of the board.
Okay, thank you.
When is the next opportunity we have to increase the fees if we want to?
2 years.
And that's based on what?
State law.
Cycle?
State law.
It's even years. The state allocation board reviews and adjusts every 2 years. They did in February.
So if we didn't increase tonight, we could in 1 year, for example.
You can raise the fee from its current rate to the approved rate by the SAB at any point in the next 2 years, if that's what you choose to do. But not over.
I'd like to ask Jacqueline. Jacqueline, and also, of course, Julie, we have exhausted one of our bonds completely, correct? And the other one, we only have one draw?
That's correct. There's one draw left on Measure E.
And what size of that draw is left?
I think that's between 30 and 40 million.
Okay. And McManus, Hooker Oak, and Sierra View are next, and they are all major projects.
Yes.
I'm trying to remember what our estimate was for McManus.
40 million.
40 million. Oh, there's a difference right there. One school. And again, as I note, the schools that are expected to start in 2026 are some of our schools in the most low-income areas with the greatest need. So. Waiting for a motion.
You need to call for one.
What?
You need to call for one.
Oh, I'm calling for a motion, okay.
Madam President, yes. I move approval of resolution number 1577-22 as presented.
Okay, a motion's been made. I'll need a second. All right. Then is there another motion to be made?
Sure, I'm going to try something out here. Currently, the allotted increase is 71 cents, right? I would like to move that we raise the fee collection by 50 cents over the next year instead, with the option to come back and look at it again next year and see if that's had, what effect that has had. What's that?
No, it
that's not what-
doesn't. If you're
no.
going underneath, it doesn't have to be 2 years.
We can go up to the ceiling at any time. Yeah, mine either, but she just clarified it a second ago. So I think that would give us, again, I'm still curious to see what the real world outcomes are when these fees change. And I'm very cognizant, having recently purchased a home in Chico myself, of how very nickel and dimey it is to get housing here. I mean, on the other hand, because I completely understand that, you know, our responsibility as a school board is to house the kids. So I'd like to find a way to split the difference, is what I'm saying. And I think that aiming at 50 cents for now, I don't know, it's a good place to start the negotiation, at least, is what I'm trying to say. So the motion is 50 cents immediately with an option to come back and look at it in a year.
And I think you should maybe clarify that that's 50 cents per residential square foot, and then what you would like to do for the motion on the commercial.
Good point, thank you. Yes, my motion is for an increase of 50 cents per square foot on the residential and to leave the commercial at the highest allocated level as recommended. 12-cent increase.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'm going to second so that we can discuss this concept.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. The motion is to increase the fee by 50 cents and come back in a year to assess the implications and to keep the commercial fee at 12 cents. All right, discussion.
I need help with math, please. I did the spine yesterday. I had a number in my head, and now I can't figure out how I did the math yesterday because it's been a long week. Can somebody help me that can do the math right now and not make me think more, what percent increase that is? Because that's how I'm working in not real cents. That's funny. I'm not working in cents, I'm working in percentages. That's how my brain it thinks a little bit better. So sorry for the pun, that was bad.
That's a 12% increase.
Thank you. I knew you'd have it. So here's, I guess I'll just kind of lay out my thoughts on the table. Everybody's made really great arguments for doing the full fee increase, for not doing the full fee increase, for doing no increase. I think that there's a lot at stake for our school district and our facilities, especially looking at the master plan as it's laid out now, and knowing that our bond measures are dwindling rapidly soon. But also looking at our community as a whole, as I have done quite a bit since I've joined the school board, is we don't work in isolation. And you know, on that note, these fee increases that are being proposed to the city council will also impact our school district because we have to pay those fees to the city. So that is also a reality that we have to kind of, you know, still juggle as far as all the numbers go. So there's a lot of moving parts here. It's a lot of variables that cause a lot of uncertainties. And I think that uncertainties have been the season for the last 2 years. And so it's hard to say, yeah, let's do a 17.4% increase without really understanding how things are going to kind of continue to settle out when it comes to our affordable housing shortage in this community, when it comes to our families who are being priced out of housing in this community. When we talk about those 91 or 40 something, I'm sorry, Julie, I didn't catch the number.
47.
You know, folks or families or we'll just call them a unit, those people who can't afford homes with that $1,000 increase, those aren't the part of our population that are you know, really well off. Those are our borderline folks. Those are the people who are maybe make enough to possibly buy a house. Like we're talking about the bottom of the bracket here. You know, those folks above that, they'll buy their houses, they'll move from the Bay Area, whatever. I'm starting to ramble. Point being that 17.4% increase is very uncomfortable to me. What else is uncomfortable is the concept of taking funding or not having funding for our schools to have those facilities to house our students, and good facilities that we can be proud of and that our students will flourish in. So it's a really hard place, and I think that a compromise at least at this time, is reasonable so that it's kind of still the wait and see as we sort of come out of this really weird, uncertain period of time that we've been in since the campfire, essentially. So I guess coming into this, I am in support of you know, a middle of the road compromise. 12% is still a little high to me. On average, I'm not doing math again, but it hasn't been any more than 8.9% in the last 6 years. So, you know, that seems like a pretty decent ceiling to me, is right around what the most, or maybe even just a little bit more, considering inflation and, you know, looming in more fees coming down on us, and also cost of materials going up. Like, we still have to play the game along with everybody else. So that's where I'm at as far as discussion goes. Sorry.
All right.
Glad I made it back on time.
Okay, so we have a motion, a second. They've both been presented. Does anyone else have anything to contribute?
Oh, were you about to say something?
What?
Oh, okay. I was going to see if I could amend the main motion to a 10% fee increase instead of the 12. Yeah, and amending, yeah, 10% increase is a little bit easier for me. It's, and I'm still not saying it out loud because I don't want to get it wrong. Yeah, so a 10% increase would be, right, 40.1 cents. Yeah.
Jacqueline, you want to
Yeah,
settle
so I
them
just
down?
did
Thank
the
you.
math real quick. So 10% increase would put the rate at $4.49 per square foot.
Is it at all appropriate to hear from our
Hold on one second, I'm
public?
sorry. Just as a point of procedure, we've got an amendment
So it would need a second.
on the floor, and I mean, I'm fine with the amendment, so if we want to consider it friendly, then
Sure, it's a friendly amendment.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
I think we're still in
no,
negotiation at this point, so if we
We're
want to
not-
talk about 10 instead.
yeah, we're not in discussion with the audience. This is just the board now making that decision. So the difference in the percentage increase versus the actual cost per square foot was 41, is that what you said?
A 10% increase would be $4.49.
No, she didn't say.
Mhm.
You did? 10?
10% increase, not 12.
Oh, okay. Okay, 449, 10% increase. Okay, so everybody's clear? All right.
I'm sorry, Madam President. So that was in the form of an amendment to?
Yeah, but she accepted.
Okay, so the amendment now provides an increase, where's the chart? Instead of 78 cents per square foot, it would be what? The increase?
Wasn't 78.
That was the original that has not been approved.
For
Original
yeah,
increase
for-
would have been 71 cents per square foot.
Yeah, it's 71.
Yeah, so for clarification, the original proposal to max out at the state allocation board is 71 cents.
Oh, 71.
The original proposal from Mr. Lando was to increase that 50 cents. The amendment by Ms. Dalby said, let's increase it 10%, which would put it at $4.49, which is actually a 41-cent increase.
41 instead of 50.
Based on what, yes, Mr. Lando had proposed.
So
Versus
it came-
71 is the maximum we could do.
Is there any other need for clarification? All right, so I'm going to call for a vote. We can do
On
roll
the
call.
amendment?
Pardon?
Vote on the amendment?
Yes, which he had accepted as friendly. So the motion in front of us is to increase the fees only by 10%, so they would go to 41 cents per square foot. And come back in a year to look at the ramifications.
So that's 30 cents from what was the 71 cents that was in the original recommendation down to 41 cents.
Yes.
Okay, I'm clear.
Okay. Roll call vote.
Robinson, no.
Lando, aye.
I'm going to delay. Dolby.
Delvey, aye.
Tennis, nay.
Okay, so 2-2, and I'll say aye. So it passes. 3-2. All
That
right.
way, nobody's happy.
Yeah, was it Henry Calhoun who said a good compromise leaves everybody unhappy? Yeah.
Apologies to everybody. I love being the least liked person in the room.
All right, Julie, we're back to you.
Good evening. Thank you for having me here tonight. So the next thing I'd like to speak with you about is bid approval for new walk-in cooler freezer for our corporation yard. Because of the dollar amount of this equipment, that's why I'm bringing it forward instead of the Director of Nutrition. We did put the project out for bid with specifications for the new freezer and cooler box. We got one bidder from Myers Restaurant Supply in the amount of $488,231.87.
488,000 and what?
$231.87, which is actually lower than what we had estimated it to be. It is very large, and it will be adjacent to the bakery. It will store frozen food and cold food for the entire district.
It's just a big, like padded room, basically, with a big air conditioner unit blowing into it, basically, right?
Yes, and it will have large roll-up doors so forklifts can drive in and out and make the nutrition services duties much more efficient.
Is the building already there?
Yes.
This is just for the cooling unit.
Correct. We will have a project coming forward for the concrete slab that needs to be poured. It's in design, so that will be coming to you in the future.
And what pot of money is this coming from?
This is coming from Nutrition Services, Fund 13 budget.
None of it is any of the rescue package monies or anything like that?
There's a very small pot of money that is specifically allocated to the nutrition program related to COVID relief, but we're talking about 50,000 of the 488,000 be coming from that. But it has to be spent on your nutrition services program. So no general fund dollars would be towards this project, and none of the COVID relief dollars that have already come forward to the board would be reallocated for this project.
Thank you.
Isn't it true that the number of meals served by our nutrition services has dramatically increased? Dramatically.
Yes, it has, and that's a good thing.
Yes.
Kids are, their tummies full.
I just want a key for the high heat days, because
I like big padded
that's where it's
rooms.
at.
And I will just add the logistical placement of this. We'll put it right next to the bakery. Right now, our current walk-ins are in our warehouse, and so they have to oftentimes push carts and whatnot across the way to get over to the bakery. The other piece to this is our current walk-ins are not really forklift ready, if you will, and so what's happening is because you have to rotate inventory, when new shipments are coming in, you have to pull everything out of the existing freezer, put the new inventory in the back, and then replace your current inventory in the front. So oftentimes, unfortunately, our staff is having to touch the same box 2, 3, 4 times in order to adequately rotate. So with this larger walk-in, we'll be able to do forklifted pallets that will be drivable within the space. So it will be much more efficient for our staff in getting food rotated and get it onto our trucks to get delivered to our sites in the morning.
Yes.
Next question. What's going to happen with are we going to continue to use the existing walk-in?
We're actually going to remove the existing walk-in from the warehouse and reutilize that space.
Thank you. You might have said that already. I apologize if so.
I didn't. Thank you for asking.
So kids now get a breakfast. They get a second breakfast if they got to school too close to time to go to breakfast. They get lunch. And if they're in the after-school program, they get another meal about 3 o'clock.
And don't forget, we have a summer feeding program as well.
Yes.
Did you do a energy cost savings? Did you look at like what this will save in energy costs by replacing this?
We did not study that. That is a good question. In general, newer equipment is much more efficient, and the coolers and freezers that they currently have are very old.
And I would imagine too, on top of that, just being in the warehouse itself probably takes on another layer of having to work harder to keep it cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it's not a conditioned space.
Right, exactly. I'd be curious, but that's not a requirement for my vote. But always good to know those too, because when we're talking about how much a project's gonna cost, it's also gonna save some money in somewhere else probably. So, it's good to know what the bottom line is.
All right. More discussion, or can I have a motion?
I'll move approval of the bid.
There's no comments from the public.
Oh, sorry, thank you.
I just thought I'd throw that
All right, good.
See if-
Okay, we have a motion,
Second.
a second.
But
You
you'll
know,
just-
Tom, if this passes, you don't get to go sleep in it or anything like that. All right.
I'm just trying to make Julie a little bit happier with me now. I know she's upset.
All right, so, vote?
Robinson, aye.
Lando, aye.
Kaiser, aye.
Dalby, aye.
Tennis eye.
All right, 5-0, good.
I'll be the one taking a nap in there.
Thank you.
Okay, so we move now to Human Resources and Mr. Hanlon.
Okay, so I'm bringing to you Resolution 1579-22, which is recognition of our teachers and certificated staff Appreciation Week. I do want to point out, I don't know what I was thinking. I put the dates on here, May 8th through May 4th through the 8th. It should have been May 2nd through the 6th. I think I put it 4th because that's today, and then I counted 5 more days, which obviously is not correct. So there needs to be a correction on that for May 2nd through 8th, or
May 2nd.
2nd through 6th, because this whole week is Certificated Staff Appreciation Week.
Okay, so you want to have it May 2nd through May
6th.
Okay. And I will comment that there are already schools where it's written on the wall.
Clearly, I did not read the wall. I apologize. So, would you like me to read it into the record?
Sure. Correct.
Whereas a strong, effective system of free public school education for all children and youth is essential to our democratic system of government, and whereas the United States has made considerable progress in the social, technological, and scientific fields due to our system of free and universal public education, and whereas much of this progress can be attributed to the qualified and dedicated teachers and certificated staff entrusted with the educational development of our children to their full potential, and whereas teachers and certificated staff should be accorded high public esteem, reflecting the value the community places on public education, and whereas the Chico Unified School District is keenly aware of the importance and impact of teachers and all certificated staff on children, and whereas it is appropriate that teachers and certificated staff be recognized for this dedication and commitment to educating students. Therefore, be it resolved that May 2nd through 6th, 2022 be proclaimed Teacher and Certificated Staff Appreciation Week in the Chico Unified School District, and urge all citizens to pay tribute to our public school teachers and staff. Furthermore, the teachers and staff in the Chico Unified School District should be thanked every day for their dedication, professionalism, and for the services they provide to our students.
I move adoption of that resolution.
We do have public comment.
Oh.
Okay.
If you want to open the public comment, Julie Treat.
Public comment is open.
Hi, everyone. So definitely a pro-teacher advocate. My mom's an elementary school teacher. My brother's a high school teacher here. So recognizing teachers is a big deal in my life. Do it every day. And recognizing the teachers when my kids were going through school was a big deal for me too. And the one comment I'm just going to make is and believe me, we've got fabulous teachers in this community. I'm well aware of that. I just want to make sure as we're entering this season and what we've gone through in this past year, as a matter of fact, that we're not going to recognize teachers who are bringing in their own personal preferences into the classroom. I'm hearing about it all the time from my parent groups that I go to. And especially now we've got this Roe v. Wade going on, we've got elections coming up, and it really needs to be just re-emphasized, reinforced, that there's no vaccine awareness. There's no, I'm going to vote for this candidate because they're anti-Trump, whatever it is. Black Lives Matter, having kids march to, this is how we do things, and we're going to, march with their hands up, BLM, et cetera. I hear it all the time. I just really want to make sure that we don't recognize bad behaviors. I was a career human resources professional for 20 years, and I did performance management. So I want to make sure, again, that we're valuing the good behaviors and we're paying appropriately, and that we're, again, not reinforcing the bad behaviors. I hate to bring that into this resolution, but the resolution was a little bit odd, too, with the way it was worded. Fully support, fully recognize the teachers in the community. One really quick anecdote. I had my kids in a private Christian school in the Bay Area, and private Christian school, I came to my son's third grade class one day. She had open class for the kids to come in, and my son always needed extra help. I walk in, she's got the radio on with Rush Limbaugh. And I went, that's a problem. Now I have to think to myself, do I say something right here? My son's here, that'll embarrass him. Do I walk right over to the principal's office? That might be a problem. My daughter is up for the lead in the play. You've got to go through these mental gyrations, right? Go home, have a conversation with the parent. My dad, my mom needs to be part of the conversation. Go back to the principal, have that conversation, and the next year she's not there, she's not teaching. And so I wasn't obviously the only one. So it's on both sides. Can't bring up God, can't bring in somebody to the classroom to talk about Christianity. Can't come bring in a doctor that's going to talk about why it's important to get vaccinated to go see grandma. None of that has any place. Gun control. None of that has any place in this community, anywhere on the public school. Those K through 12s, I'll talk about the elementary school. Those kids need to come in here and not expect to have that happen, and then have parents have to go around and then look for it and kind of be spies. So, but the rest of the teachers, fabulous job. Thank you all.
All right. No other public comment? All right, I'm going to close public comment. We have a resolution made and seconded, right? We had a second.
I don't think we have a second yet.
I'll second it.
Okay, I thought we already had a second. Okay, thank you. So, any further discussion?
Yeah.
All right.
I just want to reemphasize that this does in fact say all teachers, and that all teachers do their best to help kids learn and grow. And I am not going to be party to second guessing what is right in the classroom and what is not, unless I'm right there with them the whole time. I just want to thank our teachers for their service, full stop, end of story. It's a hard job. Some days it's an impossible job. And we are profoundly grateful that you are here.
I was ready to make an amendment that we just keep it till the 8th. Or, all year long, because teachers have a hard job. And really, anybody that's working with kids has a hard job. It's a very important job, and it does tend to be a very thankless job. And recognizing 1 week out of the year is nice. It's nice. It's good. It makes us feel good, like we're, giving everybody a pat on the back, but it's never enough. There's never enough to show how truly valuable our educators are to our students. All educators, because students will learn valuable lessons from all of the people that they learn from, however that may translate.
Any further discussion? All right, then the last vote was unanimous, so we can do it that way. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Yeah, it was Matt, or did you vote? Okay, all right. So, okay, it passes 5-0, and we move on to Mr. Hanlon again.
Okay, so we're also bringing to you at the same time the Classified Employee Appreciation Week, Resolution 158022. Now, that's on May 15th through the 21st. I got those dates right.
Oh.
And the reason
for
we're
you.
bringing both of them to you at the same time is we as a district want to celebrate nutrition, does some goodies that go out to the sites, and this way we can recognize that the board has recognized them for that future date. And the 15th is actually already started, and our next meeting is until the 18th. So we thought we'd just do them together and be ready to go when we celebrate district-wide.
And
So
it
this-
ties in, I think, with what Ms. Dolby's comment
Yes.
was, is that it does take everybody on the school site
Right.
for the kids to get the best possible education. And in some cases, it's a teacher, in some cases, it's an aide, in some cases, it's the principal.
Bus driver, it can be anyone, yes. So that was a good segue.
Did we have any public comment on this?
We do, I don't know if, was it with the prior one, or did you want both? Okay.
Oh, okay. Open public comment.
I'm very grateful for this administrative staff here. They're fantastic, bar none. Last night at City Council, they had Debbie Presson's contract was on, and I said, you can take Debbie Presson, Erica Smith, and Kayla Reese at the county, do all y'all's job, and you don't even have to show up for work. So I'm here to recognize Erica Smith. So they got a few goodies for her. And Mr. Hanlon, I think there's a typo on this one too at the bottom. It says March, at the very bottom, they're March 15th through 21st, but not a big deal. This is on you. This isn't for you. So
It
anyway.
does say March. Oh,
Anyway,
man.
Let's do both, March and May. So anyways, yeah, so I've got her some of my favorite goodies. My Epsom salts with lavender, relaxation, and some wonderful flowers.
Oh, there, thank you. And something just got knocked off. Diana's going to get it. Our standards are dropping,
I
I
was
can
going to say,
tell.
what level standard is that? Are we at TK? I think that's a TK standard.
All right. May I have a resolution or a motion, excuse me, a motion?
Yeah, I'll move the adoption of Resolution 1580-22.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
I would like to offer a friendly amendment that we change that date.
Yeah.
To May, yes.
Accepted.
All right. So we can have just a voice vote?
Oh,
All those-
can I make a comment?
Oh, yeah.
So ditto to what I said, and thank you for recognizing my segue, but also just to reiterate the job that our office staff has to go through. Because making those schedules is not easy, taking those phone calls is not easy, being the public face of the school is not easy. And I know that there's some people that do get forgotten that are completely pivotal to a smooth day. Our attendance clerks and office managers, yeah. So all of our classified staff are very important. Our classified staff that are face-to-face with students all day, very, very important. But also, those that keep the things in motion are I just feel like we should just give them an extra shout out.
Eileen?
Yes, Kelly, yesterday, you shared a memo on CSEA's, was it the ABC?
Yeah, it's called the ACE program.
There we go.
And Chico Unified was one of 10 in the state that has been awarded this by CSEA, our classified union. And we get the opportunity, this is going to be great, and the board is all welcome and encouraged to participate as well, to shadow classified employees in their work. You can pick whichever of many different positions. You can ride with the bus driver, you can serve food, you can work as an aide in a classroom, can help with the custodial crew. There's many, many different opportunities depending on your interest. And they are doing a big PR campaign. They will be up here and videoing some of it, taking lots of pictures and sharing that with other districts. So we're privileged to be a part of that.
How do we make contact, or who do we make contact with if we're interested?
At this point, we're still trying to set the dates with the CSEA representative. Okay. So if you are interested, let me know, and then as soon as we have the dates confirmed, I'll share that, and I'll share that out anyway.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So, all right, voice vote for Resolution 1580-22.
Aye.
Aye. All right, 5-0, and Jim's going to fix his small error. Okay, so now, is there a board member that wants to request to agendize an item? Okay, seeing none, we will be moving to closed session. And after a closed session, if there's any decisions made, there will be an announcement. All right, thank you all.